Throughout history, society has documented the punishment of individuals for their transgressions through incarceration. From biblical times with the Apostle Paul, while the 20th century brought us the stories of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Nelson Mandela. These names have echoed through history for their significant contributions and the injustices that they faced. Yet, beyond these well-known stories, countless others remain in the shadows or in the midst of forging their paths. Join us as we delve into the lives of individuals who, despite having been ensnared by the justice system, are tirelessly scripting their journeys towards redemption, dignity, and hope. Listen closely to the tales of hardship and triumph as we explore the profound human spirit of those still penning their own stories. Can you tell us your name and let us know a little about how incarceration impacted your life?
Okay, my name is Michael Maggio, and my most challenging aspects of being incarcerated were just surviving in a violent environment. And the thing that you miss the most are the things you take for granted when you're in society, like just little things like getting up and making a sandwich in the middle of the night. There's just so much taken away from you that you take for granted when you're here, like being able to just hug your daughter or call your mom. And all those things are gone when you're incarcerated. All your rights are gone.
I guess incarceration for me was more of a psychological thing than a physical thing. Just basically being controlled like a herd of cows, being told what you can do, what you can't do, what you can eat, what you can't eat. So, it was basically, like I say, more of the psychological effects that prison had on me.
Well, first, my name is Rudolph Carey III. For the bad, just some of the unhuman-like treatment that you get when you're in prison. We didn't have any air conditioning, and it used to be, it was extremely hot inside.
Well, my name is Janiqua Morris, and being incarcerated, it was a horrible experience from the beginning, all the way through. I remember sweating walls, really hot, horrible food, not for human consumption, violence inside. So the experience itself was horrible, and it taught me immediately not to be a repeat offender.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Wren. So I think the moments or instances that had the most impact on me while I was incarcerated, a few things come to mind. One, solitary confinement. That was, something that obviously I'd never experienced until incarceration. It's something that I don't think anyone can understand until they've experienced it. It's a pretty inhumane thing. You're put in a cell. They say you're in there for 23 hours and you come out for an hour. You don't ever come out for the hour, for your recreation time, as they would call it. Some days you don't get a shower. Hard to get things like books or anything like that to occupy your time. So you spend a lot of time sleeping and just kind of left to your own accord. So it definitely has a profound impact on your mental health, I would say. And then for me, it was when I lost my grandparents while I was incarcerated, not being able to be there for my family or to be able to go to the funeral or anything like that, which I understood because I was serving consequences for my actions, but still definitely left a big impact on me that I think motivated me to change when I got out, as well as, being restricted in your basic human rights, to be able to walk, talk freely, do the things you'd like to do, seeing a lot of the injustices in there in terms of treatment by the guards to the prisoners and things like that.
My name is Jamie Malloy, and I'm Reentry Director with FAILSAFE-ERA, but I'm also a returning citizen. My experience with incarceration is not I guess, typical compared to most of the clients I work with, because I actually got picked up just for overnights a couple of different times, and most of my experience has actually been on probation. So for me, sometimes that makes it hard to relate to experience of people that have served long sentences, but I think that there's still a lot of crossover that's helped me a lot in the work that I do today.
Well, my name is Marshall Williams, and I have been incarcerated twice. Early part of the years was for drugs. Me and my brother transporting. I'm originally from New York, but that part of my life had passed, and thanks be to God that I went through that process and I did not get incarcerated. I just got held.
My name is Antoine Curry, and my experience of incarceration was life-changing. The most challenging part of being incarcerated for me was learning to have to deal with myself.
Hi, my name is Michelle Mick Goodwin. Some of my experiences that I encountered when I was incarcerated, I was 22 years old in college, and basically was in the wrong place at the wrong time, as the judge said. One phone call actually got me 10 years. I got sentenced to 10 years in prison then. But because I was doing good and still in school, they suspended all except for the 3.5 years. And I did 2.5 on house arrest, and then I did a year and a day in the feds.
Good afternoon or good morning. My name is Aretha McDowney, and the impact that incarceration had on me was just being there and just seeing that it was a rotating process. I seen people come and I seen people go, and it made me think, like, is this really me? You know, and the impact that it really had on me was just knowing that it was so hard to deal with, and just knowing that what the impact I had on my family as far as being incarcerated, because that was not the way I was raised. And it was just so hard to just deal with being behind those bars and just being told what to do, where to go, and just hearing the bars closing and slamming. That was a great big impact on me. Just knowing that I had to just sit back and just think, like, why from the very beginning. And I know that the impact it had on me, not only on me, but on my family, because they just knew that this was not me. So coming from the outside, on the inside of a jail cell, was so hard just to deal with, just to be able to sit behind those bars and to sit in a room, a 5x7 room every day, 23/7. It was just like off the chain.
Well, my name is Edward McCall, and my experiences being incarcerated were, I don't know how to answer that question, to be honest. My experiences being incarcerated were pretty positive for the most part. It was a lot of mental and spiritual growth, honestly. A lot of self-reflecting and learning how to, combat different adversities, learning ways to do self-control and things of that nature. But yeah, that was like the main things that really stood out from being incarcerated.
How did you cope with the loss of your freedom?
That was something that was, I don't think anyone can really explain what that feels like. Like I said before, I had been in the Marine Corps, and I had been in boot camp for 3 months, and boot camp was terrible, but I never lost my freedom. I was always considered a citizen. I was always considered a human being, and there was a purpose to me being in turmoil and whatever it was. This was very different, because when your freedom is taken away, you have no one to call. You can't call the police, because their job is to keep you exactly where you are, in the place that you are. You can't call your parents, you can't call your friends, because their job is to keep you where you are there. So when those doors shut for the first time, I felt less than a human being. I never felt that before. So that was very, very different.
The experience I lost of freedom while being incarcerated was just knowing that I couldn't go and come as I pleased. I had to sit and listen to someone tell me actually what to do and how to do it. To just stop and think that, you know, all of the freedom that I did have was totally blocked. Just sitting there and just saying, why do I have to have somebody to tell me what to do? You know, that was the hardest part for me, being told what to do and how to do it, and to be able to just sit and wait for a bar to open for me to enter back out or to enter in. I used to be so frustrated with that. So it took me a minute to just realize that my freedom was gone, you know, and the things that I had to actually deal with was the other inmates. They had experienced some of this stuff prior to years in and years out. My incarceration, my first 2 years, was very easy for me. So I got a slap on the wrist. I did maybe a year at the first sentence. The second sentence I did maybe 2 years. So that was kind of easy.
It was tough, you know, because I miss my kids and my family was the hardest for me. But at the same time, I just took advantage of every program that I could and, you know, trade. And it allowed me to get closer to God because before I got incarcerated, I didn't know God. I knew that there was a God, but I didn't know him personally. So I surrounded myself with a lot of, you know, good Christian brothers, a lot of older brothers that just kind of took me under their wing.
That was my biggest challenge. That's still today my biggest motivation. The loss of freedom. I never want to go back to that place again, specifically for the reasons I just mentioned before. All of the things that can happen to you when someone strips your freedom from you. So I haven't coped well before, and I pretty much will probably never cope. That's probably why I'm so driven to never go back again.
I think that the way that I dealt with the loss of freedom was I kind of just blocked it out of my mind. I just kind of blocked out that, hey, this is the crime that I committed. This is the time I have to do, and I learned how to escape through participating in church. I learned how to escape, going to work, working out, things of that nature. Trying to just keep myself as active and busy as possible.
It was a process. I mean, like when you kind of like get there, like once you get kind of settled in, not like a full routine, but once you get settled in, it's like you kind of start to realize like I don't have freedom, like I can't move. Like sometimes you'll think like, oh, I'm about to go do this, I'm gonna do that. Like you can't, like that door locks behind you. But what helped me get through it was just reading and exercise and writing out business plans and stuff like that. That's literally what saved me. Other than like, you know, cracking jokes with like my cellmate or whatever, but other than that, that's really what helped me get through it.
The most challenging part of being incarcerated for me was learning to have to deal with myself. There's no owner's manual to dealing with the loss of one's freedom. I would say the first thing that one must always do is acceptance, you know, and that's a tough pill to swallow, like accepting regardless of how unfortunate the circumstances were that led to this situation, this is now your plight and this will be your plight until your plight is over.
The most challenging thing for me, I guess, was, you know, being told what to do and not really having control of your own life, and, you know, the shakedowns when you feel like you was being dehumanized when you had to, you know, take your clothes off and squat and cough, and you know, that was kind of real humiliating for me.
The things that I used in order to maintain a sense of normalcy while incarcerated, I think what first would be is knowing that this is not just happening to me. You know, even though I'm locked in my cell, you know, oftentimes I'm in the cell with another man, I'm in a dorm with another man, I'm in a building with other men that are going through this same situation. So, you know, the first thing is to like normalize it, and that, you know, it is a norm for this environment. After that, you know, building a strong support system, whether that is inside the institution or outside, and trying to find some purpose or something that you can be intentional about whilst, you know, to still keep moving even though your body is stagnant.
Yeah, I think the way that I coped and the way I kept my right of mind was in an odd sense, I let myself believe that I was in control. I let myself believe that I was there because of my own actions, and these were the consequences that I had to face, even if I didn't necessarily agree with them, right? Because I do not believe that the criminal justice system is fair, or that the punishments, a lot of them are fair, or that we go about the right way about incarcerating people in this country. I think there should be more money poured into mental health services and community services in contrast to just locking people up and, you know, throwing away the key, kind of that mindset. But yeah, I think the way I coped was, and really stayed hopeful, was just, like I said, feeling like I was in control, and then still feeling like I was in control of my life after incarceration, by the things I did and by being in there and reading books and trying to expand my mind and heal from things I had experienced, and also change negative mindsets that led me to incarceration. I think that was the best way I stayed hopeful and kind of coped with the whole process of being incarcerated, not necessarily knowing the outcome of my case or my sentence. I just had in my mind that I was in control, and that no matter what came, I would be prepared for, and I would go about it the right way.
Praying, and knew that I had something to come home to. Which was? My son, my family. I knew I had them to come home to. So like, I don't know about everybody else, but with me personally, when I do time, I kind of cut the outside off. Like, I ain't gonna keep calling home, because you know that right there makes people, you get unfocused on what you're supposed to be doing. You're too busy worrying about what's on it. They're gonna still live. People want, regardless who you are, the outside world's gonna keep on going, even though you're stuck in that one place. So me personally, I wasn't the type, I never had nobody ever come visit me in jail. That was just out of the question. I wasn't gonna take my mom through that. As far as phone calls, yeah, maybe on a holiday or something, I'll do that, but like to pick up the phone every day and be calling, no, because you're not only you might think it's a person not showing you that they love you, because when you do call, they're answering it, but to keep calling every day or running somebody's bill or making somebody keep putting money on the phone, that's you being inconsiderate to that person, because that person still has to live out here on the outside.
What were the charges against you?
That's a lot to explain. One of my charges were it was habitual driving, falsifying state documents, obstruction of justice, and I got charged with a assault and battery on police officers.
My first trip to prison, I was convicted of armed robbery and assault with intent to maim. My 5-count indictment was armed robbery, assault with intent to maim, grand theft, felony theft, and assault. So I took it to trial, and I was convicted of 2 of the charges. The other 3 I was found not guilty of.
It was assault and battery charge. I got in a fight with a woman that had thrown a friend of mine's clothes away. I didn't know her. I didn't have any personal issue with her. I was just young and doing a lot of substances at the time. So we got into it in a fight, and then I didn't know about the warrant for months until that night.
My hardest crime that I committed was writing checks from my mom's checkbook, and that was to support my drug habit. So I did a total of 7 years altogether out of my entire life. My hardest time was doing 4 years. So the beginning of my incarceration, My first couple of years that I did time, it was like fun and game. I didn't learn anything from it. I just knew because we could order Victoria's Secret, and it was really like, okay, I'm just leaving home and just coming to vacation. Camp Happy Land is what I would say it was, because I was able to order Victoria's Secrets, I was able to order oils, I was able to order all of those things that I could order actually on the outside when I was home, and I love to shop and stuff like that. So once you get incarcerated and you have the access to some of the things on the outside, it didn't have me looking at incarceration another whole way. I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. You know, I didn't think about any of the hardship. I didn't think about why I did this. I was just looking at the fact of being able to get what I want, you know, and people just giving me. So it was really, really easy my first 2 times being incarcerated. So my third time of being incarcerated, it took me to another whole level, to the fact that I could say that it got harder, and it made me stop, look, and listen and understand why I was being incarcerated.
So the crimes that I committed, which I would say this, I think there are different classifications of criminals. Not everybody's gonna rob, not everybody's gonna steal, not everybody's violent. My initial crimes were those of selling narcotics, mainly cocaine, crack cocaine. Any other situations I found my into, you know, kind of came along with maintaining that lifestyle while indulging in that. So again, I would consider myself once upon a time, I was considered a drug dealer. Those who deal drugs know that there are times where drugs are not readily accessible. So in those times, if that's all you know to get money and now there are no drugs, then you gotta find another means to get money. As a result, we threw a party, the party ended up in a confrontation, and by way of that confrontation, a firearm was discharged and I was charged and convicted.
My first charge was I had a felony homicide. I was playing with a gun one morning and I accidentally shot my friend. So the thing was, I called the police, but you know, when you going through something like that, you're kind of in shock, you know, so you don't want to believe that that happened. So they said I was telling conflicting stories, because in my mind, I just couldn't say that I pulled the trigger. So I said that the gun went off. So that was like the conflicting story, like I was hiding something. But like I said, I just couldn't say that I pulled the trigger because it was so like, you know.
My charge at the time was distribution with the intent to sell a scheduled substance.
I was charged with accessory after the fact of a homicide. One of my friends that I grew up with and knew for a very long time, we were at a gas station one night and just filling up our car, you know, it was late at night, filling up our car, ready to go home, go to sleep. And unfortunately, he got into an altercation with a man inside of the store, and the man was pretty drunk, but you know, made a lot of obscene comments, a lot of threats, things like that. And we tried to just brush it off because, you know, we didn't want to get into something like that. So we essentially, I was at the car, he came back to the car, and we were just pumping gas, we were going to leave. And then the guy came out of the store, continuing with the threats, and then also motioning with his hand in his waistline like he had a weapon. So at that point, we were pretty fearful for our lives, and you know, thought that this guy had intention to hurt us. So unfortunately, it continued, and then he began to approach. And you know, essentially we froze. We didn't really know what to do or handle the situation, to just drive out of there, or what may have you. And unfortunately, they got close enough within arm's reach of each other, movements were made, and my friend thought he was pulling for his gun and pulled his gun and shot him, and he unfortunately passed away. And so, just being as young as we were, you know, 18 years old, we didn't know what to do. We freaked out, didn't know how to react, and was fearful, especially during that time of, you know, the police possibly killing us or, you know, just not getting a fair, because we'd already both experienced the criminal justice system, so we didn't think we'd get a fair trial or that they would, you know, hear or listen or believe, you know, the things that transpired. But in our case, it happened at a gas station, so the cameras depicted and showed that, you know, what we had said was true. So that was essentially what made it so where I did, you know, a few years in terms of, instead of doing, you know, 10 or 20 years. So it was proven it was like a heat of the moment thing, not something premeditated.
How long were you incarcerated?
Initially, the charges was attempt second murder, use of a firearm in the commission of a felony, possession of a firearm by a felon, and it was something. Oh, and willfully discharging a firearm in an occupied dwelling. After going to court, I was sentenced to 17 years with 5 suspended, given a 12-year active sentence, on top of a year and a month sentence that I had in another county for selling narcotics at the time.
Did you serve all your time?
I served 5 years out of that sentence, and I believe 2012, my habeas corpus was granted, and I gave back 8 years of that sentence. I was released February 24th of 2000.
I got 13 years, so I did about 11 years and 4 months.
5 months and 8 days. It was, as I mentioned, 5 months, I believe, originally, because it was 4.5 years suspended off of a 5-year sentence. It was 6 months. I got some good time, but at that last 8 months, those last 8 days, excuse me, I ended up getting in a quarrel with a female, so I came up from the hole those 8 days. I was really waiting on trial, so I don't know what happened.
Right now I'm 54, so all of my life I've did altogether maybe 4, no more than 5 years of all the time complete. From 1990 to now, maybe it's been off and on in between. It was no more than 5 years.
What types of charges?
Mostly all my charges are drug charges, distribution charges. Like I said, my addiction was money. I know for a fact that's what I was addicted to. Now, I use that same lust and luck for the money. I just work hard now for it. I'm always working. Like, I don't care, they call me in overtime, and like I try to explain to the young kids that they're managing and I supervise, but I try to get them in their head to understand, like, everything that look good is not good. And the way I look at things now is, when you doing a lot of things, even when you're a business owner, you have to put something up to get, for that thing to function and go right. Even if you're hustling, you have to buy your drugs to sell in the beginning to see that profit. But the easiest thing, and if people look at it that way, it'll be a whole bunch of more people working, and people will go to work every day. But if you look at a job, to me, a job is you are hustling, but you don't have to put nothing up to get the reward from working. All you have to do is go to work every day. You go to work, you get paid. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna get paid. They don't pay you to come to work, you know what I'm saying, for you to get there. But once you get there, you're gonna get paid. And if people look at it like that, like, it's all profit. I don't care how many years you put into it or whatever. That's all profit. That's all money that you done made, and you didn't have to give nothing to get it. All you have to do is show up and be there.
Now, while you were incarcerated, did you witness any violence?
I didn't personally experience any violations. I witnessed people get shanked. I witnessed people get beat just because they're trying to join a gang that's in the prisons. I've had a lot of verbal altercations.
Probably I came home from Goochland in 2015. Then, because of the same thing about this, you can't live in Maryland and be out and have charges out here in Virginia, they wound up violating me, and I had to go back for 30 days to Fluvanna. And out of all my times that I ever did before in prison, Fluvanna was the worst, because they kept me on lock 23-1, just for the parole people to come to say it was their mistake, da-da-da-da, and we're gonna release you. But I did 32 days in the hole because of that. I mean, that was just their thing. I wasn't Virginia property, I wasn't Maryland property. It was, I had to wait for parole to come, and I did 30 days down in solitary in there, and that was like the worst experience I ever seen. I seen mentally ill people being mistreated by COs. I seen a CO being mistreated. I would have quit that day, but one girl threw her feces at her. Like that place is like the worst that I ever been in. And like I said, I've been in federal prison before and everything, but Fluvanna State Prison for Women in Virginia that's a wake-up call for anybody. I don't think anybody should even have to go through and see all that stuff that be going on there.
Yes. My first incarceration, I was in prison in Jessup, Maryland, and I witnessed a stabbing where a man almost died. A man came in our dormitory in July, dressed in a hoodie, pulled tight around his face so he couldn't be identified, with a 6-inch ice pick. He went to the bed across from mine and stabbed the man 20 times in the chest and neck, and then he disappeared. He was never identified. It happened. It took less than 2 minutes for that to happen. That's how quick it happened. That's how quick you can die in prison.
I seen a lot of fights, dudes getting hit in the head with locks in the sock. When I was at Augusta, I was in the chow hall eating dinner, and just out of nowhere, some guys jumped over the rail and they started stabbing some dudes in the chow hall. So what I did, I just stood up and kind of backed my way out to the door. And it was like something you would see in a movie. And I was just like praying to get out of there. And as I was backing up, I just seen a dude repeatedly stabbing him. And the COs, they trying to do what they can do. And when I got out, it was like a cloud was just lifted, like, thank God, I made it out of there. And I know I was like shaking a little because I've seen fights, but I never actually, witnessed something like that. And I wasn't even really supposed to be there, but because the system was so overcrowded, they was just sending you anywhere at the time. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes on the inside that you just, wouldn't believe, but you still have to live, you still have to carry on like nothing ever happened.
Yeah, the majority of them that I saw was when, so I was apprehended in Pennsylvania, in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is the capital of Pennsylvania, by FBI and U.S. Marshals. And so when I was apprehended, we were placed in it was called Dauphin County Prison, which it's an odd term because it's essentially a county jail, but for whatever reason, the amount of time they can hold you is different. They can hold you longer than like a jail can, because a jail can only hold you for a year and then you go to prison, but I think they could hold you up to like 4 or 5 years on a, local county jail sentence. And so that jail had a lot of issues. It honestly might not even still be running today. There's a lot of people calling for it to be shut down because a few young people, very young people, mysteriously died in this facility. The conditions were very bad, largely ran by gangs, so obviously you can imagine a lot of violence, and a lot of drugs were also in the facility because of, just corrupt institution as a whole. You have guards bringing stuff in, you have people, smuggling things in, and so, yeah, there's definitely a lot of instances of violence there, and unfortunately saw a young man try to hang himself. That was very unfortunate. I'm glad he survived though, and did not pass away from that. So, unfortunately, these are a lot of, we witness a lot of these things. I'm sure there's rarely a person that has gone to jail no matter where they went to jail, where they haven't seen some instance of a fight or, you know, someone trying to commit suicide or hurt themselves or hurt others, or you know, traumatic instances from treatment from staff at the jail or things like that. You know, it's really unfortunate how commonplace these things are in the institutions, and they're almost accepted as just that's how the way things are, and it's not really a lot of initiative to change a lot of these things in a lot of places. So
yeah, I mean, it's jail. It happens. Yeah, I mean, but like it wasn't as sporadic. I mean, it was moving more organized because nobody wanted to really get in trouble. So, you know, like if somebody bleeds, that's a street charge that's gonna add more time, get reprocessed, is a whole other thing. So, you know, it would be like, all right, you know, meet me in the cell, whatever. Somebody get the CEO to pop the door, they leave the door crack. Once the CEO leaves, and they go handle their business and it's over with.
So I remember I was on a top tier, and there was a girl down low on the bottom tier inside of her cell. She was screaming for attention for the guards to come see her. I'm not sure what exactly was the issue at the time, but from the talk around, they just think that she was having a mental breakdown. And the only thing I can really remember at that time was the GO badges, is what they call them. Immediately stormed in, everyone was locked down, it was a fury, and then they rushed in and they opened the cell and they immediately threw a white sheet over her, and they all were on top of her. And I was so scared and I was worried, so I was just like, you know, hitting the window like, you know, don't do that, like you could hurt her. But they wasn't listening, so they were all on top of her, and they finally got up, but she was down on the ground and she was still, but there was still this one like black lady who had shortcut hairstyle, and she was still on top of her, hitting her with the sheet over her. And then they told us to get away from the windows, and then when we came back, she was just gone. So I don't know how they got her up out there. I just don't remember any medical coming in there. I was scared, because I mean, that could have been me, you know, if I needed someone. And it's very similar to the time I had asked that same CO with the shortcut for toilet paper, and she just laughed and wouldn't give me toilet paper, and I was on a toilet, literally. So it was just a shaking experience. It still shakes me to this day, because I always wonder, you know, if she's all right.
Violence, yes. I mean, there were some fights. I guess in jail, people are kind of on their best behavior. So I teach in the jails, and I teach from the Bible a lot. I'm a Bible teacher, so I often talk about jail being purgatory. So it's just a place where you're trying to figure out where you're going to be. So you don't want to be too crazy. So there were some fights, some arguments, but for the most part, people were kind of chill in my experience.
As far as me witnessing any violence, the experience that I had with violence there while being incarcerated was just seeing females fighting over another female. That was basically the only violence that I saw. So they got into different relationships because they had lost relationship with a man. So their relationships with another female, their violence was fighting and trying to keep that female. So that was probably the only violence that I had experienced there.
Well, naturally, there is plenty of violence that takes place inside the facilities. I was blessed to not fall victim to some of the violence that I witnessed, just due to refraining from certain situations. You know, I don't gamble, I'm not into sports. I don't just befriend a lot of people just to befriend them. So, you know, I keep my circle small. But the violence that I did witness was a constant reminder of where exactly that you are at. And even though you were sentenced to a length of time to do that time would be done under dire circumstances that could potentially, you know, shorten your sentence today.
So how old were you when you were first incarcerated, when you went to prison, and What was your reaction when you first heard those words? Put your hands behind your back. You are under arrest.
So my age was, I think it was about 28, the first time ever. And honestly, what went through my mind was, Lord, I hope this works out the way that I prayed that it would work out. Because I've been praying for quite some time that whenever I did get arrested, that the Lord would turn it into something good. And eventually he has, and he did. But at that time, when I heard those clicks, it was, man, I hope this is going to work out.
I was 28 years old when I heard those words, and just from a simple driving charge that said, put your hands behind your back, the officer telling me, put your hands behind your back, you are now going to be taken to Rappahannock Regional Jail. Never once did I thought that that would happen on my very first driving on suspended charge. A lot of people were giving the pat on the back, just going into the jail or to the courthouse knowing that I was not going to go home. Was like, it just had me broken down in tears. Just to say that, why am I going to jail off of my first driving charge, driving on suspended? I was 28 years old, had a lot of life ahead of me, saying, just obey the law. I didn't never want to obey the law. I was not that type of person to just say, should I obey the law? I wanted to drive just to be able to go and come, not knowing that there was going to be some consequences and repercussions behind that.
The first time that I heard, put your hands up, you are under arrest, was actually not my first arrest. I had the unfortunate luxury of receiving charges as a juvenile, in which case at that point your parents kind of turn you in or turn you over to the authorities. The first time that I was, a warrant was issued for my arrest, and people was dispatched specifically for me, was for attempt murder charges. It was in the city of Virginia Beach. There was a fugitive apprehensive task force arrived to apprehend me, and like I thought they was coming to kill me.
How old were you?
At that time, maybe 22, 23. Lot of guns, lot of flashlights, and a lot of barrels. I have only, let me say this, how many times have I been arrested? Unlike some others, I have not had a very extensive criminal career with numerous arrests. However, the arrests and charges that I had did, those specific isolated incidents did come with a substantial amount of charges. So I would say actual arrests, maybe 4. So I would say this, what was I thinking when I was encountering law enforcement or the judicial system? More often than not, it is a rude awakening, because you do not understand how serious the situation is until the situation is happening.
So how old were you when you heard those words? Put your hands behind your back, under arrest. What was going through your mind?
Wow. First of all, it's unbelievable, because when you hear it and you see it on a regular basis happening to others, the first thing anybody thinks that it's not going to happen to them. And when that happens, your whole life kind of flashes before you, like, what's going to happen next? Where am I going to go next? Am I going to go through? How's my family going to feel? What is my family going to think of me and who I am and who I've become? And your character kind of gets blemished. And by seeing that and knowing that, you have to say, where's my life going to start and how is it going to finish? Or is this the end of my life? So it's a lot that comes through that when they say, stop, you're under arrest. put your hands behind your back. It throws you into another whole category of just being humiliated.
I was 19 years old when I heard, "Put your hands behind your back." I was arrested in front of a motel. And at that time, I just remember a whole bunch of policemen in black clothes running towards my pickup truck at the time, grabbing me immediately out the car, throwing me on the ground, putting my hands behind my back, cuffing me, and immediately grabbing my face, telling me that I swallowed drugs.
I was in my 50s. I was 57. And again, the Lord had another plan for me, and He protected me through all that. And so, I mean, I did. But because of that, and what I went through, I'm able to help those people. My heart reaches out to those people, the ones that society's written off, the ones that have written themselves off. It's not too late. It's never too late.
The time I heard those words was actually after the fact that I turned myself in for that federal charge. I just, you know what I'm saying, from love of my mom, I just, for them to run up in her house the way they did and all this, looking for me, it was like, I had a choice, I could have, but I chose not to. And when I went to go turn myself in, when they put them handcuffs on me, I was like, it made me think like, this is real right here. Like, this ain't nothing I'm watching on TV or nothing. This is really happening, and that's something I have to deal with. And that's what I did. I just dealt with it and made the best out of it. I
was 14 years old. The first time my criminal history started very young. I came from a dysfunctional family, a lot of domestic violence. I didn't like being at home, so I stopped being at home, and I started getting in trouble.
I had just turned 22, and it was kind of unreal because I never thought that I would be in that situation. And you never know, what will happen from one minute to the next minute. Things just happen, sometimes out of your control, unexpectedly. So it was hard, being 22 years old and being arrested for something that you never thought you would be arrested for, and being put on the news and, just going through the process.
Yeah, so I think my first arrest was when I was either like 14 or 15 years old. I was in high school. It definitely, was a very odd feeling, because it's like you're being, especially as a juvenile, I think, right? Because it's like you're just being whisked away from your family, and taken to some detention center, and really uncomfortable, definitely demeaning, because you're just treated completely different from how when you enter the court versus how you leave once you're taken away. So definitely was an unpleasant, fearful feeling, because you don't know what to expect your first time coming in, because you hear and you see things through media, and you can imagine what it's like, but you never know what it's like until you're really present in the detention center. So it definitely was I wouldn't have admitted it when I was a young man, but now I'll say it was definitely a scary feeling, definitely not pleasant.
When I was actually told those words, when the first time I ever heard "put your hands behind your back, you're under arrest," I think I was like 19, 20, something like that. Yeah, I was like, 19, 20, somewhere around that age. I was nervous because like in that situation it was a lot going on to it. Like I really could have gotten some deep trouble, but I kind of was able to get out of it in that situation. So I guess I didn't get arrested, but I did get handcuffed and detained or whatever. So I mean that was like the first time. I think first one was like reckless driving.
And the worst was?
The worst one was my last arrest was assault on law enforcement, hit and run, whole list of stuff. I can't remember all the charges they had, but yeah. I spent about 4 months, give or take, about 100 days in Rappahannock.
The first time I was ever arrested, I was just fresh 18, and I was being arrested at Dulles Town Center Mall for shoplifting, which was extremely embarrassing, especially because I had the money in my pocket to cover the cost of the items I was stealing. But I thought I was gonna stick it to the man, and so there I was with my friends who did not know I was stealing, and I ended up getting caught because I was careless and not very good at stealing. So there I was, I had turned 18 about 3 weeks earlier, and I was getting marched past my friends by security down to the police station inside the mall, and I had driven everybody there. So they're looking at me like, Jamie, first of all, why are you stealing? And second of all, what are we going to do? So I got processed in the mini police station, and luckily they let me go with a summons, but it was a really embarrassing experience for sure. Every time that I did an overnight in jail, it was a very different experience. The first time I got picked up, I was actually walking across a field in the middle of the night. I was currently homeless, and I got picked up by the police. I did not know that I had a warrant, so I walked right up to the police car. I had no concerns about it whatsoever, and then they told me that I had a warrant. They took me to the jail, they processed me, and they actually released me at 3 o'clock in the morning with no shoes, no wallet, and no cell phone. And I had to walk to a gas station, borrow 50 cents off of a trucker, and use the payphone back when those still existed. It was 2006. And I had to call my dad to come and pick me up. And for an 18-year-old girl, just to be loose in the middle of the night without any resources, it just felt wrong to me. Like, not that they should have kept me, but that maybe they should have let me use the phone, or I don't know, it didn't really sit right with me that I was in a lot of jeopardy in the middle of the night like that. But that being said, I had done the thing I had the warrant for, so I had to also take accountability for the role that I played in putting myself in that situation too.
My initial response was, what did I just walk into? I was scared. I had my mat, which was about as thick as this, and I slept underneath the stairs. Like, it was so crowded that you couldn't even, there wasn't enough people to get into rooms. Some people slept out in what they call the main area. So I I camped up underneath the step in a corner so I can be able to kind of see what was going on in front of me. I actually I didn't even fall asleep until I knew everybody else was snoring and asleep.
Now, as we bid farewell to the first chapter of our exploration, we are humbled by the resilience and determination of those who have shared their stories with us. Each narrative a poignant reminder of the complexities surrounding the concept of justice and the journey toward redemption. Their voices echo through the corridors of time, challenging preconceptions and inspiring change. Through their struggles and triumphs, we are reminded of the power of human spirit to endure, to overcome, and also to rebuild. Now, as we leave, let us carry with us the lessons learned from these individuals, their courage, and their unwavering hope. And as we continue our journey, let us remain steadfast in our commitment to creating a world where compassion and understanding prevail. Join us next time as we delve deeper into the lives of those who refuse to be defined by their past, but instead are forging a path toward a brighter future. Now, as we venture further into our exploration, the tapestry of human experience unfolds before us, revealing the intricacies of resilience and redemption. In this chapter, we turn our focus to those who have faced adversity head on. navigating the complexities of reintegration into society with courage and determination. Their stories, though varied, are bound by a common thread of hope, a hope that transcends the confines of circumstance and propels them forward on their journey toward a new beginning. Join us as we shine a light on the lives of individuals who refuse to be defined by their past, but instead embrace the opportunity to write their stories and to reclaim their place in the world. What would you say was the reason behind your criminal activities?
Filling out of place, trying to fit in, just wanting people to like me because I had some low self-esteem issues. When I first stole something, when we were in high school, and a couple of the guys on the football team was like, "Man, you got away with this? Oh man, we can do this all the time." I was like, okay, they need me. I felt needed, and so initially it started off with alcohol, in high school, and smoking weed. When my father died 10 days after my 18th birthday, I experienced crack cocaine for the first time. I graduated to heroin when I moved from Richmond to Baltimore. I started using heroin.
So I committed that crime. So the question is, how did I get over drug addiction? And the short answer to that is I didn't get over it. God got me out of drug addiction. And I know that may sound like, oh man, that's just a good answer to say, but I was a junkie, an absolute junkie, the worst of the worst. And when I robbed the store to get the money for treatment, that was an effort for me to get myself better. But what happened was, after I robbed the store, I actually got away with the robbery. There were no warrants. There was no one looking for me. I had totally gotten away with it. But the Lord began to deal with me about what I had done in that store about a year later. And the Lord promised me, it wasn't a voice, but I just knew this in my heart, that if I turned myself in, that the drug addiction would be gone and He would turn my life around and He would make it into something good. And that is exactly what He did. I turned myself in, I got incarcerated, but He totally changed my life. And that is how He got me off of drugs. So I was looking at a possible 20 years, and He turned that 20 years into 2 months. So either you take drugs, or you go through it. And I think withdrawal is probably the most difficult thing that I've ever been through in my life, and I can describe it as the greatest depression that you've ever felt, mixed with the worst flu that you've ever felt, despair, sadness, shame, and on top of that, you know exactly what it takes to get you out of it. And just the thought of it, just knowing exactly in 5 minutes, if I did X, Y, Z, this will all be gone. That's what it's like. In the morning time, the gate opened up and traffic flowed this way. In the evening time, the gate opened and it flowed this way. That morning, the gate malfunctioned and it flashed myself and the police officer on the bridge. So we're going 60 miles an hour. Neither one of us realized the other one is on the way, and then we hit at the top. She broke her foot, and that was about it. And we actually sued the city of New Orleans, and 30 days later, Katrina happened and washed away everything. But it's all God's plan. But no justice there. So I'm still working hard, trying to buy my sandwiches and what.
My mother had just passed in 2007 from cancer. My father was incarcerated for the most part of my life. I remember him when I was very young, so he was incarcerated. He was recently just released in 2015 from like 1999. So at the time, I think I was seeking love in all the wrong places. My grandmother, yes, she fully supported me and took care of me, but I just felt, I think in my heart, that it wasn't enough. I felt that I was lacking the normalcy that should have been in a household. So at the time when my mother passed, I immediately attached myself to someone who had a guise, I would say, because it seemed that he cared. He seemed, to be someone that wanted to support me. But later, as I said, as a revelation happened, I realized that he pretty much was against me as well. So I think with all of that happening, that's pretty much what made me follow along, I guess I could say, with what he was doing, because I was tricked, kind of manipulated. And then after the fact, I believe that my parents, their past crimes, the models that I've seen over the years, being raised in this area here, made me, or I should say made it easier for me to follow along with crimes.
Yes, I didn't have any guidance at home, and I started hanging in the street and hanging with street people at a very early age. And I just got so caught up in it, and then I started drinking at about 14, started drugging about 17, 18, and it just escalated from there. He had made that. Most of the weapons in prison are made. They have metal shops. They have, they're mostly made in prison. Yeah, so they make their own. I mean, there was a metal shop, and a guy working there, and he made knives look better than the ones you buy in a hardware store. Like, most of the drugs come in either through the visiting room or the guards, but most of it through the visiting room.
When I look back over my life, when I examine stories that have been shared with me from other inmates, other returning citizens, whether in, out, coming, going, young, old, I'm still left drawing a blank. I know for me personally, I do not come from, or I'm not necessarily a byproduct of those things that I entertained or indulged in. I was never instructed that this was the proper way to go. I still don't understand why we are drawn sometimes to the things that we are drawn to. I always speak on, out of the documentary, 22-minute documentary, and my son, who's watched the documentary more than anyone, his question is, what did I use to make the drugs look like that? And I question him, like, why did that draw your eye? And he doesn't know. The best answer that I could give as far as why I committed crimes that I've committed is I feel like I minimize risks.
Honestly, I think about that all the time. The reasons behind my criminal activities was more or less money, survival. It was like a lot of different situations I was going through that really just put me to it, like my back is against the wall, so it's like I gotta go out swinging, So, but that's really what it is, like just money. I really wasn't trying to prove anything to anybody, wasn't trying to sit in there and hang out with nobody, nothing. Like, I just wanted some money, and that was a quick, fast way to get it, and that's how I got it. So.
When I was younger, I justified a lot of the harm I was causing to my community because I didn't understand who I was impacting. One of my biggest things was shoplifting. I used to steal all the time because I felt like these corporations were making so much money, and I didn't feel like the cost of the things I was stealing was their true value. And that was before I actually took a shoplifting prevention program with OAR Fairfax. That's what taught me about how the shoplifting was actually driving the cost of goods up and costing the company more money for things like insurance, loss prevention insurance, and everything like that. And so really, I was affecting my whole community without even realizing it. Some of the other things that I was doing, fighting, drinking and driving and doing drugs, again, I thought these were victimless crimes. I thought the only person I was hurting was myself or the other person who was willing to fight me, so I didn't view them as a victim either. And it's just a lack of awareness about the community impact of crime, the friends and family impact of crime, friends and family of the victim, friends and family of the offender. I just wasn't seeing it. I was young and just really self-centered at the time, so I had no framework for that.
Can you tell us a little about your family, how they were impacted? How was your life growing up? And also, if you have children, how did they cope with this?
Like I said, my father died 10 days after my 18th birthday. My mother never raised me. My father raised me my entire life with the help of my great-grandmother, who me and my mom had a really rocky and still have a really rocky, unbalanced relationship. My drug use and my lifestyle that I was living, it was breaking their heart. They seen so much more in me, but I had just got caught up. One of the greatest gifts I've given to my grandmother, who is no longer here, was I was clean when she passed away, and I spoke at her funeral.
I have children now. I'm the only child. I have no siblings. My mother and father both drank from as far back as I can remember. And so my mom and dad would fight a lot. My dad would beat her. And I would have to see that. And I can remember back when I was so young, I was terrified, and I didn't know what to do. And there wasn't much I could do. So I just didn't like being there. I didn't like being at home. All right, so my first incarceration, I was 13 years old. And I went to court, and my mother stood up in the courtroom and told the judge, he does what he does because I'm unfit, I'm an alcoholic, I drink every day. My mother, it shocked me. I never thought she would do that. So the judge told her, we'll keep him until he's 18, or you stop drinking, whatever comes first. So I was fully prepared to be sent away for 5 years. I had no faith she could stop. She stopped that day. She never drank again. They investigated her, but I had to go to a reform school for 11 months, but for that all to take place. So, but by the time they had stopped drinking, I kind of look at it like the mold was set. I was already into that life. And then being locked up for 11 months as a juvenile in the gladiator school, which was a rougher camp than some of the prisons I've been to, you start learning different things. And so that's what started my criminal activity. And then I got out and started getting into drinking and drugs a lot. And all my incarcerations are directly or indirectly drug related. If I never did drugs, I never went to jail.
At the time, I had 3 kids, and they were greatly impacted because I was, involved in their lives. My grandmother, my mom, I have a little brother, so it didn't just affect me, but a lot of people, were affected by my actions and me going away. Basically, I had to, come home and get to know them all over again. And I had to kind of, rearrange the way that I was living, kind of to the way that they were living. And it was a challenge because I was used to a structure, for years. So coming home trying to fit into their lifestyle was a little off to me,
At the time, I was estranged from my grandmother. I had just went through the death of my mother in 2007. I attached myself to, at the time, my boyfriend, who ended up ultimately being my husband for manipulation. And my grandmother, when she heard from me, it wasn't good. She was very upset. She was sad. She's older, so it kind of threw her into the hospital. And she just didn't want to be involved even in the hearings because I know I broke her heart. When I returned from being incarcerated, I still didn't immediately amend it. I went to, like I said, at my boyfriend at the time's mother's house. Well, at that time he was my husband. So I got a job, and then I just felt like I didn't want to repeat offend and go back because it was such a horrible experience inside. So I just started working on myself. I started getting a job. I started, taking better care of myself, trying to get back into school. And then at a point where I could no longer stay with his family after a revelation, I pretty much called my grandmother up to seek forgiveness and try to get back with her. She was standoffish, but she was open not too long after. She immediately opened her arms and embraced me.
Yeah, I think, my family situation and how I impacted them was, so I was adopted as a newborn, born opioid dependent because my parents were in prison and struggling with substance abuse disorder. And so I was adopted by a single mother who was an absolute angel and raised me. But, unfortunately, I fell into kind of that same cycle of incarceration and drug and alcohol abuse and just bad behavior. And so, it really impacted my family, especially my grandparents and my mother, because they had raised me because, brought them all types of stress and, unneeded problems into their life through my dealings with the criminal justice system and things like that. So definitely it's something I feel guilty about even today, especially when they're battling bad health, to have, one of the people you love the most in and out of all these horrific situations. I definitely understand how that could have been, stressful and probably not helped the situation. Yeah, so while I was incarcerated as an adult, because from 2015 to 2020 I spent the majority of my life incarcerated, and around 2019, while I was already been in a year still awaiting court and sentencing and all those types of things, my grandmother abruptly passed away from cancer. It was pretty unexpected. Apparently she'd had cancer before. They had removed it, but then it came back and spread to all her vital organs, brain, lungs, liver. And so it was pretty abrupt, and definitely very emotional, because my grandmother essentially was hand in hand raising me with my mother, because she was a single mother. So, on the weekends or days when she was working and there was no one to watch me, my grandmother and grandfather would watch me. So it was, very unfortunate, especially because I got to speak to her in her final days, through the jail phone. And pretty much the last time I talked to her, a few, maybe an hour or so later, maybe even less, she passed away. But, her last wish on me to the phone was for me to get my life together, get right with God, and to take care of my mother. So I sought out to do those things from that point on, and it was really impactful. But then, unfortunately, my grandfather also passed away probably 3 months after my grandmother passed, but he had been in bad health for a while. So didn't necessarily want him in pain, but definitely didn't want to lose him. So those were two pretty impactful moments during my incarceration, because obviously I applied and called and tried to, be able to go to the funeral, but obviously that's, pretty unheard of. That doesn't, I guess I could say I got some closure. I mean, I'm still learning how to deal with death and grief and all these things, especially you feel pretty detached from it in a sense when you're incarcerated, because it almost feels like you're not in the real world and it's not happening because you're not there and you're not present. So yeah, I could say I think I've gotten some closure now, but I don't think I really got closure until I was able to be released and then, go and see my grandmother's and grandfather's burial site and things like that, and be able to be present for my family.
Unlike a lot of people that I talk to, I grew up in a really healthy family. I did not experience early childhood trauma. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she would talk to us about our feelings and how to treat each other and what kindness was. And my dad was there to coach my brother's soccer team, and we did a lot of things together as a family. My brother is 14 months older than me. He went to a magnet high school for science and technology and has gone on to be one of those big brain type guys who I just admire so, so much. So it's interesting because I kind of went off on my own. I was the black sheep of the family by choice, not by being pushed out by anyone. And I'll never forget the look on my dad's face when he came to pick me up that night when I got released at 3 a.m. and I told him I had been arrested for assault and battery. And he said, "I just don't understand it, because we never raised you to fight. We never raised you to solve your problems with violence." And I I just didn't even have the words to explain to him why I was so different from how I had been brought up. But on the flip side, I'll never forget when I kind of came to my senses and grew up, and the first time that he looked at me and he said, "I'm so proud of you, and I can see that things have changed." And the same thing with my mom. I mean, at one point she said, and I quote, "This will be the last time that I nursed you through a hangover that you did to yourself." And I said, "Understood." And now for her to see me, and I'm a full adult, I'm 35 years old now, and I have an amazing career, I've got amazing friends, I've just got a really exciting life ahead of me, and she's so glad to see that I'm going to be okay. That was one of the biggest moments for me, is looking in my family's face, and even my brother. He said, "I was really worried about you for a while there." And now when he looks at me, he says that he knows I'm going to be okay.
Yes, my mother is still living, Martha Carey. My father, William Spencer Carey, he passed when I was 22, when I was facing my first felony charges. Both very well-respected people in the community. I have a twin sister, whom me and my twin sister was born on my eldest sister's birthday, and I have another sister as well. My decisions, or the consequences of my decisions, impacted my family. Mainly, I would say my mother, because my mother is the one whom I had most communication with out of the family while incarcerated. My mother always stressed to me, nobody knows how a mother cares about her child. I know this was a constant thing for her, because she would always speak on how a lot of the other individuals that I was involved in these same activities were still free, and she would see them every day and then have to speak to her son in the evening by phone. I understood the hope that she had for, because she, every day is, I want my baby home, but also the fear that came with that, because that remains, Antoine could still come home and it still be something else and have to go through that again. So if anything, I know that it impacted her even if she kept it to herself. But my mother's 70, and even though, words don't do that justice, that she still has that fear today, even being home, 10 years now and established and everything. So I'll start with my daughter Anaya Yana, whom will be 18 February. This last incarceration, or I'll say I've left her, or I've been absent in her world twice due to incarcerations. The first time she was roughly a couple months old, and that was just a year, so you always, again, you minimize it in that, well, the baby don't really know that dad is gone or anything like that. So but you come home with this assurance that, well, I ain't never gonna put her through that again. But here it was, I was doing just that. And she was at an age now that, like, I had been home with her, so we was able to establish a relationship, and now, daddy is, missing, gone or whatnot. So that's a thing. My son Silas, of course, I left the same week that he was born. I returned, he was 5. His first time seeing me home, he was already 5. But with Silas, because he's a boy, because he's already drawn to this place, and he's heard so much about who his dad once was, I know that he's never seen any of that. All that he's seen is what I've been since I've been home, and I take that. Justin now, the remnants of my incarceration are present in my children now, because I feel there's a disconnect that maybe would not have been there had my absence not opened the door for those things. I don't think it's necessarily my incarceration, because unfortunately, like, that's a norm now. Most kids, deal with the father not being in the home, or mother, or by way of incarceration, divorce, whatever. So, I don't think it's so much that, but with incarceration comes mixed emotions from your child's mothers, because, you're also absent from them. And that at times can, open up the door for, influence and, a lot of things that is confusing enough for us adults to deal with, let alone for the kids. And they kind of get, caught in the mix of that. And I know that what I will wear is, had I been present, I wouldn't have at least those issues to deal with, or, the et ceteras that come with that. I am home, I am present in their lives.
The impact I had on my family, because I was the youngest girl, I should say. It was 3 girls and 3 boys, and I was the baby girl. So the impact that I had on my family was writing checks from my mom, trying to support my habit. So supporting my habit, I had to get money from somewhere. So my thing was, okay, my mom was older. My mom wouldn't really care if I wrote her check, but at the time she did care. Whereas my sister was pounding her to make me get incarcerated from that. She wanted me to do time. They thought that if I did time, that would straighten out my habit, or to stop me from doing what I was doing. My habit was cocaine usage. So the biggest impact, I think, was because my mom had never done drugs, or my mom had never drank. But my dad, he was an alcoholic, and the impact that it had on them is like, none of the rest of my kids did this. Why can't you just simply pick up a cigarette and smoke it? Why did you have to go to the hardest core of drugs to do? So I didn't ever think of it that way then. I was like, oh, I'm just doing it because there were some of my friends that was doing it as well. So the impact I think I had on them, because the rest of my siblings never did that. Why did I have to do it? Yes, at the time I had a daughter and a son. My daughter was probably like 5 years old, and my son was probably like 6. Well, no, my son was 4. So they were 1 year and 6 months apart. So as they got older, they realized that, why is this happening to us? Where is my mom? And as I went on and on and on, constantly doing this, the impact I had on my kids was, my daughter was so much into like her sister, my sister, which was her aunt. They thought that my sister was her mom because I was always gone. That was my oldest sister, who helped take care of my daughter because I was being incarcerated at a time after time. And so as time went on, I couldn't find someone to actually keep my kids. The kid's father was not there because he was incarcerated as well. He was on drugs and stuff. So as he got out, he was supposed to take custody of the kids. He didn't want that. So the impact that I had on my kids was, they wanted their mom and they wanted their dad, but I think they wanted their mom there more. So as it went on, and 2006 is when I lost the death of my son. While being incarcerated, my son passed away from a gun. And that took everything out of me. I screamed and hollered, and this all happened on my birthday in 2006, February the 18th of 2006. And I know the impact that it had on him because I had wrote him a letter, and in his left pocket, when they found him, he had the letter that I had wrote him. He was writing me a letter, he just didn't know how to send it to me. So that was in his right pocket. So that made me feel some type of way, and after experiencing and reading the letter that they had sent to me from my son was saying how much he wanted his mom to come home. He just could not deal with it, to the fact that, where is my mom? I talked to them on a regular basis, but it was nothing like seeing your kids. So that had a really, really big impact on them, because they really wanted their mom to be there. My son did commit suicide because I was not there. He was trying to, well, it happened with my godbrother that had him at the time. And he learned to put that gun together because my godbrother was a police officer. And he learned to put that gun together. So I think it's him taking away the pain was what actually happened. I couldn't bury my son, even though they let me out. They let me out for the funeral. So once they let me out for the funeral, and then I had to go back into the prison, but I had to go back in front of the judge as well to get resentenced. So as I went to the court, the judge said, I don't even know how to talk to you right now. He's like, this is such a hard pill to swallow. So he's like, I want you to take care of yourself. I'm going to release you. And all I heard was release. So I just broke down and started crying. And I was released from that time, which was 2006, all the way up. I was doing great up until 2015. So I'm trying to bear the pain, cover the pain. So I went back to using cocaine. So that was like a part of trying to heal or numb the pain.
I can actually say the family that knew about the incident supported me, because I think what doesn't break is your character. Your character doesn't break. Who you are is not defined by your mistake. And as long as you continue that walk in who you are, people see that we all make mistakes. We all make mistakes. My wife supported me. My kids supported me. I think that was the hardest thing for me to tell my girls, to let them know this is what Daddy did, but this is why I did it as well. But the mistake was mine and mine alone. And it was definitely a growing experience for me to actually go through that, and being locked up and sitting with individuals that you actually know, that come through a program that you actually hold dear to your heart. So when they said, well, Mr. Marshall, why are you here? Because you're the one that helps us, was something that wasn't a smack in the face. It was more of like a face up to say, now your mission starts, your walk starts. So yeah, I'm truly grateful.
The way my decisions impacted my family, I mean, I know like my parents, they was worried sick. My brothers, I mean, they were worried, but you know, like they're kind of living their own life, still getting their things in order. So I mean, everybody was worried, but I mean, it is what it is. They know I can handle myself, so I don't know. Like,
I was raised by my mother and my father, so I had a great upbringing. My parents were awesome, and sadly, around the time that this accident happened, a couple years later, my mom ended up having a massive stroke, and she lost her ability to take care of herself and to speak, and she passed away a couple years later. And then a few years after that, my father had a massive heart attack and he passed away. So this was during the time that my drug addiction was like kind of snowballing. So it made it that much worse because I lost both of them. Great parents though. I couldn't ask for better parents.
Well, my son was young then, so he thought I was at school. That's what my mom used to tell him, I was away at school. But my mother, I knew she used to worry all the time about it. Like she, because I wasn't there. So I'm sure it bothered her, as far as stressing her and worrying, was I okay? But I was, I'm the type of person that I can adapt to any type of situation or any environment. Once I'm in that environment, I'm gonna adapt to it and make it, make the best out of it.
Oh, it was devastating. It devastated. My drug addiction was so bad that I got out of jail and I was supposed to come home to Florida and take my daughter fishing. I started using it as soon as I got out. 54 days later, I was back in prison with 45 new felony charges for writing bad checks. My daughter was crying, devastated. My son was upset. I mean, everybody was pretty much had written me off. Thought he's never going to change. That happened in 2008, and I got back out in 2012, and I haven't been back since. The Lord has prepared these relationships with my son and daughter. I just took my grandson deep sea fishing. I'm going to go down and live at my daughter's. I'm moving to Florida. My relationship with my son is amazing. My daughter and I are very close, and even though all the things I did that hurt her, she never turned her back on me. She always wanted her daddy, and now she has him. And she knows to this day, and both my kids know this, if they in a jam, they need something, I'll be there for them, and they're confident of that. And there was a point in time when I couldn't show up for anything. Yeah, they wanted to, they didn't want to see me what I was doing.
What was your drug of choice?
Cocaine. And it escalated from snorting to smoking crack. And once I started smoking crack, it was a wrap. I mean, I fought this addiction for 4 decades. And it wasn't until I sincerely believed that the only one could cure me of this disease was Jesus Christ. And when I put my faith and trust in him, he did.
It's kind of hard because it's 2 different lifestyles. When you're incarcerated, that's like a arena of its own, and then you have the visiting room, which is kind of no man's land. Then you have the outside, so you being incarcerated, you're just hoping that one day you're able to be back on the outside. So it's kind of hard, for your family to kind of understand what you're going through, So basically, you need a lot of love and support when you come home, You need time to kind of see what's going on and figure things out, I know my wife gave me 6 months, before I had to get a job and start helping. But the more time you do, the longer it takes to readjust to society,
So there's no real time frame you
There,
can put on that.
everyone is different.
I don't think it had much of an impact. I mean, we became closer, I guess. I mean, going through like the struggle of everything going on, it brought us closer, I would say. But like, not much of a negative impact besides them just being worried about their child. Other than that, yeah.
They're doing good, much better. And I realized that, they need their father because fathers play a great impact on the kids' lives. It's a struggle sometimes because, when you've been away so long, you're not used to your kids jumping on you or, it's a good feeling, but so you have to understand too that, they're just kids. They miss their father, they need their dad.
While you were incarcerated, was there any type of rehab that was available to you? And also, did you participate in it?
In New Kent County, I participated in the therapeutic community. It used to be called Life Without a Crutch. I don't know if you needed a GED, you could get one. I don't think a lot of vocational things were offered in the jail. However, I took advantage of a lot of the biblical studies that came from the chaplains. Because of the charge, assault and battery on police officer, I couldn't participate in some of the educational or vocational studies because it required me to go outside of James River.
Well, when I left out of Goshen, when I did that year, I went to a guest house, which is a house for women in Arlington, actually Alexandria, Virginia. I did that for I was in that program. I volunteered and I wasn't even on papers or anything. I volunteered for guest house for 2 years, graduated from there, but in the process of me being in there, that's how I got my culinary degree. I went to DC Central Kitchen and went to culinary school and got my culinary degree. The guest house has told me about the program and said you had to write this essay to see if you could win a scholarship to it. I did it. I won it. I graduated from culinary school. Now I have a culinary degree. I have a business degree.
What are you doing with that?
With my business degree, I'm working on my LLC so I can have my own. Well, I'm going to do catering, but I'm going to sell dinners on the weekends. And right now I work full-time. I'm a manager at Dunkin' Donuts.
Yes, in Maryland I did. I did 7 years in Maryland, or 6 years in Maryland. I did 7 years in Virginia. Virginia Division of Corrections doesn't have that many programs, as opposed to Maryland. Maryland has parole. They have a lot of programs. Virginia has some. The sad part in Virginia that I saw a lot was young people coming in there with 2 and 3 year sentences. They're in there for selling drugs. So there's not enough time for them to get in to a drug program because there's a waiting list, and they're not serving enough time even though they sign up for it. So they don't get the treatment. And then when they're released, they're given $25 and we'll see you later. And $25 doesn't go far. So what are they going to do? They're going to do what they know how to do to make money to survive. They're going to go back to that corner and sling dope. I mean, if they don't have a job lineup when they get released from prison, I mean, that $25 doesn't last long. No, not until I did, but it was on my last incarceration.
Did you got treated?
I did a bunch of programs, like you name it, anger management, Toastmasters. I did a little bit of everything, but I don't really know if the programs can help you, because like I say, of the psychological effects, I think I've been out about 5 years now and I still struggle at times, Sometimes it may sound crazy, but you want to go back sometimes because you don't have that responsibility, I know for me, I had like a little group of friends, and we like stuck together. We could cry to each other, we could talk to each other, and you don't really have that out here because you're like, who can I trust, who understands like what I'm going through and how I'm feeling.
They weren't provided, so there weren't really many educational programs or any type of programs provided to the inmates. None that I know of, unless it was like, none that I know of that. I didn't even know who like my caseworker was in there. I think I seen like a glimpse of it one time, but other than that, I didn't really know about any programs or anything that would have been offered to kind of help, add like something to take my mind off of like the situation at hand, something to help better myself. I didn't know anything about that because, like when you in there, you kind of only got a few places you can go to change the scenery. So it's like if you were able to actually get outside the pod to go sit in the classroom and do something else, that would be really helpful, but there wasn't any programs that I know of that was provided.
The resource that I only remember is the one that I took advantage of when we went to go see, I believe it was a pastor that used to come inside, and her name was Connie, but I don't remember her last name, but she was a light in the middle of the storm. Like that was a great resource to have someone there to build up your faith, in a higher being than you. So that was a great resource in my opinion, but as far as anything else, I don't remember any other resources at the time.
Educational resources?
No education, definitely no education. That's a big thing that I'm very, very, very passionate about, so no, there was no times for education.
How about the job market? How was that for you when you returned home? How did you manage that?
So this is kind of comical to me because I never forget it. I was in between staying with this girl in King William and staying, sometimes with friends or family in Richmond. And I remember staying with her, and I had, conned her to let me use her car to, so I can go look for jobs. And I went and used. I went and used. I came back and just kind of hung around there. It was like, like a strip mall type of thing. So I remember I said, okay, I'm just gonna hang out around here. And I walked down, I was just walking down the sidewalk, and I said, let me walk into this mattress place. It was called Marcy Mattresses. I never forget it. And I walked in, and I said, oh man, I know this guy right here. And he said, hey Rudy, what's going on? I said, hey, how you doing? Was talking. I said, man, I need a job. He said, you need a job? I need to hire somebody. I said, what? He said, yeah, when can you start? I said, I can start tomorrow. And so he said, no, let's start on Monday because I'm back Monday, yada, yada, yada. So I started selling mattresses at Marcy Mattresses in Ashland, Virginia. And I later got promoted, but my drug habit got worse. And so I had to wait for a bed in Salvation Army Rehabilitation Center that didn't open up until September 15th. That was the day I had to turn myself into the Salvation Army. So I'm working at this place from May until September using drugs, and it felt easy because the quote unquote supervisor, he used drugs. So it made it a whole lot easier. I didn't really have to hide it. You know what I mean? And so I had to end up lying to them. But the rough part came when I came out of treatment and I moved to Fredericksburg. The place, what happened? They went up for bankruptcy because they owed money, and I had to start finding a job again. I say this because I said it in the interview. Cal Music was Cal Music was like my angel. I mean he was a probation officer I couldn't even describe or even ask for. He just the most encouraging person that I needed as a male figure in my life. And he helped me stay focused despite the no's, despite the doors being shut. And I don't know, man. It's just. And so I ended up finding a job at McDonald's in front of the Spotsylvania Mall because of another person that I knew seen me and asked me, what was I doing? I said, I need a job. And he hired me. And I started the next day making $7.25 an hour. And I was happy. I was content. I was happy. And I got some perspective. So what we call in 12-step programs, we call them sponsors. And I was complaining about the pay at first. And he asked me a simple question. He said, Rudy, how much did you make in prison? And I said, I made 23 cents an hour. And he said, guess what? God just gave you a raise for $7.02. Be grateful. And so I began to get grateful for the door that God had opened. And I got promoted in that place. I began to be a crew trainer. I began to be the orientation manager. So like God was moving real quick. But I wanted to do something different. And I was encouraged to go back to school. And so I went to Germanna in psychology because I wanted to help the community. I wanted to work with people. And so I ended up leaving that job, working at the shelter. I'm like, everywhere I went, God gave me another angel. He gave me Bunny Melzer, which is another intricate part of my life. She gave me a chance when I didn't even think I could measure up to the job description. You understand? Like, you needed to have this, you needed to have that, and it was a case manager position, and she called me to her office the last day that applications needs to be submitted, and she shut the door and she said, why haven't you put in for the case manager? I said, because I don't have a degree, I don't know anything else. She said, I want you to go downstairs, get the application, and bring it to me. and be here tomorrow for the interview. And so here I am, I'm going up against people with, bachelor's degrees, associate's degrees, and I ended up getting this job. And it kind of propelled me to help people on a deeper level. And so I did that. I became the, what was it called? Something for change that DOC had. It was something, thanking for a change. And, I went through the courses with all these, to me, I call them all these smart people and all that stuff. And, I'm like, how am I? They got to know I'm just barely a high school graduate in college trying to do something different. And it just was blowing my mind. So anyway, I got that, went to another job, started doing something else. And it's just been a wonderful thing.
Yes and no. Yes. I had already, after this last one, I had already made my mind that I wasn't gonna go rush right back into the food industry. And no, because my mentor had told me about a job. When he brought me the application, I filled it out. The next day I went to work and I'm still working there.
How did you have good community resources that helped you?
FAILSAFE.
I'm sorry.
FAILSAFE. When I first came home a year ago, 14 months ago, the judge just told me that the other day, 14 months ago, I was lost. I was, in between if I was gonna stay out here in Virginia or was I gonna go back home. And yeah, I was lost. But like I said, thanks to FAILSAFE and my first pretrial officer, she's the one who told me about FAILSAFE. And they told me it was my decision if I wanted to do it, and I chose to do it.
What about housing? Did you have any issues with regards to housing?
Yes, that was, when I first came home, I stayed with my son. But then when I wanted to, do it on my own, I did have problems. So instead of me trying to go get an apartment, I just settled. I lowered my, my goal. And now I'm renting a room, which is still having my own privacy, but yeah, it's a little rough if you don't have nothing. But it's like I said, it's all in the choices you make. Because before I got my room, I went to the shelter and stayed there. And that helped me to get to the next step.
How hard was it to rebuild those relationships once you upon release? Relationships with your son, your mom?
My son is my A1. He's been there since day one. My mom is in heaven now, but I'm sure she's looking down on me and proud of me. But yeah, it wasn't hard with my family. Like, I got a loving family and everything. Like, even the ones that's still up in DC and Maryland, they always want me to come up there. But like I said, it's more like I'm more relaxed and settled out here now.
Yes, I'm a painter, so it wasn't that hard for me because most contractors will hire about anybody if they can paint well, and I can. I work for a man now that hires people that come out of prison, that are ex-drug addicts, that are struggling. His name's Richard Ford. It's RAF Painting and Power Washing. And I've worked for him 3 years, and I worked for him 3 years in the past before, when I was here before. And he's a very good boss, and we share scripture. We pray before we start working in the mornings. And we ask that the Lord's hand is upon us on these jobs we're doing, and we do them for the Lord.
Yeah, so all of those resources were, I think, incredibly difficult to find or to figure out. Luckily, with FAILSAFE contacting me, that helped a lot. They were able to point me into the direction of a lot of resources. But I know in my instance, it isn't as difficult as it is for a lot of other people. Luckily I had family members and people who were believing in me that allowed me to come stay with them when I got out. Even though my housing situation was maybe a little bit shaky, I still had somewhere to stay. Employment, I was lucky enough where I was able to convince someone into giving me a job, but I know that's a big struggle that a lot of people face, and that's actually, I'm interning at a company where we help people with records find background-friendly employers, and we're trying to really solve that problem because that's a huge problem in America where people will have a record no matter how small, maybe one misdemeanor or something like that, and it makes it really hard to find employment. And I don't think there's really enough resources in the community, in a lot of communities, to really support and help people reintegrate into society, because FAILSAFE does so much, but unfortunately one organization can't do it all, right? It's not fair to put it on one organization. I think the government has to provide a lot more funding and resources and things like that to help people reintegrate, and I think they should make it a little bit easier to reintegrate in terms of getting, some people have so much trouble just getting their ID when they're released, finding housing, a halfway house or something just to kind of get them on their feet, and then that just leads you right back into the cycle of incarceration, because then maybe you're living on the street, you're living in poverty, so you're much more likely to commit some crime, maybe even just to eat. So I think these are a lot of things that we still need to work on.
My career field has been interesting. Like I said, I got the job at the butcher shop with my friend from high school because there was a friend of mine from high school, and I went in and I said, I'm on probation. I just got put on probation, and I asked the owner. Usually I find that independently owned places are easier because they can make the decision without like upper corporate trying to say what charges they can and can't take. So I talked my way into a position at a family-owned small place that only had about 5 employees. Ever since then, I kind of life hacked the system by going back to the place that ran my community service when I was on probation, and I said, hey, you guys promised me that if I stopped getting arrested that my life would change. I stopped getting arrested, I got off probation, I got a psychology degree, and now you have to put your jobs where your mouth is. And they said, well, we can't give you a job, you have no experience, but you can volunteer here. And that was what started my career in reentry. So I found a weird workaround by working for the system. I wanted to be one of those people that change the system from the inside. And it's hard for people that don't want to do this type of work. They have to look for either record-friendly industries, which sometimes come along with barriers like, look at the restaurant industry. There's a lot of drugs in the restaurant industry. So then you take somebody who needs a job desperately, and then you put them in an environment where they can get a job, and they're surrounded by triggers, for example. So I was extremely lucky in my career to have been able to avoid some of those temptations and some of those downfalls that I see my clients go through.
As we draw the curtain on another chapter of our journey, the echoes of resilience continue to live within us. The stories shared by our courageous returning citizens serve as a testament to the indomitable human spirit and the power of perseverance. Through their struggles and triumphs, we're reminded of the transformative potential of second chances and the importance of empathy in fostering meaningful change. Their journey toward redemption is not just a solitary path, but a shared endeavor, one that requires understanding, support, and a belief in the inherent worth of every individual. As we prepare to embark on the next leg of our exploration, let us carry with us the lessons learned from these extraordinary individuals. And as we continue to bear witness to their stories, may we be inspired to champion the cause of justice, compassion, and also second chances for all. Join us next time as we journey further into the lives of those who refuse to be defined by their past, but instead forge ahead with courage and conviction, illuminating the path towards a brighter future. As our journey unfolds, we find ourselves drawn deeper into the labyrinth of human experience, where the boundaries between redemption and recidivism blur. In this installment, we shift our focus to the complexities of reintegration and the myriad of challenges faced by those striving to rebuild their lives against all odds. From the shadows of adversity emerge stories of resilience, determination, and the enduring quest for a second chance. Join us as we navigate the intricacies of redemption, exploring the untold narratives of individuals who refuse to be defined by their past, but instead forge ahead with unwavering resolve. Okay, can you talk about what was maybe one of your biggest fears coming back into the community?
Biggest fear is staying away from this is kind of cliche-ish, but people, places, and things. And the other one is the same Jesus or God that I served in prison going to be the same one I serve once I get released? Because I struggled with that the few times I went in and out. And so I was just like, this has to work, you know what I mean? So prior to, I had this like belief, I guess, or like lack of roots per se, because I would go to jail for 10 months or so forth, and I had this wonderful relationship with God, and I would come home and it seemed like all quote unquote hell would break loose, and I'm like, okay, where are you at, God? If I was in jail or prison, it seemed like it was miraculous. You worked these miracles, and now I'm home, and it's like where are you? Like what? And it really wasn't him. I found out it was really me. I stopped doing the things that I used to do, and I would blame them on society or people. Hey, you know what I'm trying to do? You know I want to go to church, and I want to do these things, you know, and I made excuses. I wanted to do something different. I struggled. I struggled because it was hard to get a job. And in that process, I started to blame God for something that it wasn't his. So I had started using again until the last time I used. And I said, God, I looked at my inmate card and I said, God, I can't do this anymore. And it's like for the first time, coming home, I trusted God the same way I trusted him in prison, and that changed my life.
My biggest fear was not, it was losing my mom. Like if something was to happen to her and I wasn't there. Now, my biggest fear probably being over successful, because there's always gonna be somebody that's gonna try. Once I get to that point, it's gonna be somebody that's gonna try to bring me down because they're gonna bring my past up. But probably just being over successful. Like I got a lot of plans, a lot of goals. I feel like if you set a goal, once you reach that goal, you should be there. Some people elevate and go even higher, but sometimes higher ain't better for you. So, you know, if you started and if you already and you're comfortable there, me personally, I'm gonna stay where I'm gonna be comfortable at. So in my field, being overly successful would be owning my own restaurant. Something I don't want to do, but if it happened, yeah, I don't want to own my restaurant. I just want my food truck, because the overhead is just too much. Like I'm in the business, so I know, you know what I'm saying? Like I know the ins and outs. I know how much it costs. I know if you don't own the building, you're leasing the building. I know how much cost for the lights, the water, the gas, electricity. I know how much the food cost is. It's a whole lot to own a restaurant. Yeah, that would be my highest successful point. And right now in my food career will be to own my own food truck.
My biggest challenge of entering back into the community was thinking that people were going to see me another whole way and thinking less of me, not more of me. Just realizing that this girl has done so much wrong. Is she going to get out and do the same thing after some years? They counted me out, I'm sure. But as you know, they couldn't count because I refused to go back. So talking and doing things positive, letting people know that it's not good to be incarcerated, but if you're going to be incarcerated, you need to live and learn. You need to have some type of motivation. while being behind bars and being able to let your struggles be a great outcome?
It was a breath of fresh air, but at the same time, like I say, it's a struggle because everyone's reality is different. You know, the way that people see things, view other people, view yourself. So sometimes it's like you don't fit in, you know, with society because you've been living a certain way for so long, you know, and it's hard to explain and people don't understand. I used to pace around the room, you know, like maybe waiting on my wife to get dressed, or I'm just pacing back and forth, and I know it's kind of making her nervous, you know, and when she would turn the lights and the TV off, I would just like freeze because you're not used to sleeping in total darkness.
I think my biggest fear of re-entering into the community was probably fear of violence. You know, a fear of violence from people that I dealt with in the past in terms of when I was younger and doing things I wasn't supposed to be doing. People who were associates or family of the guy that unfortunately passed away, which I understood why people would want to be violent in those situations, but I think that was my biggest fear. I'd say it's a combination of two things. My biggest fear were probably some violence being done unto me because of some of my actions, some of the things I was involved with, and then also unfair treatment from police and probation officers and things like that that would have impeded my reintegration and got in the way of me trying to live a normal, happy life. You know, with all the restrictions they put on you from probation and all the weird technical ways you can get violated and quickly sent back to jail. So I think those are my two biggest fears, especially when I got out. I had a lot of trouble sleeping when I first got out and acclimating back. Just out of fear of those two things, you know, fear someone was going to come to harm me, or fear that the police were just going to come and lock me back up, things like that, which, you know, some people may see as irrational, but at the time I think they were pretty rational considering the circumstance.
I would say it was more of my family, like, helping me, you know, because you don't really want people in the community to know that you are in prison, so you're trying to fit in and be as normal as possible, you know, because I know a few of the neighbors had found out and they kind of backed their kids up from playing with my kids or around my, you know, so that was hurtful because my kids didn't do anything, you know, and don't judge me based off something you heard. Get to know me for yourself.
My biggest fear upon a release was different for my two incarcerations. My first upon being released the first time, my biggest fear was my biggest fear upon being released the first time was like I was afraid of having to be an adult. Prior to that incarceration, it only made sense to commit crimes, sell drugs. And coming home, I know that, you know, now that can no longer be a thing.
I mean, I think I was confused and conflicted at the time. I was so happy to be free. It was a relief, but you know, it was fearful at the time because, as I mentioned, I didn't have a bond that I used to with my grandmother, and she is my family support. And I was fearful that I would have this big scarlet letter on me and everyone would, I guess, push me away. So it was both. I know that whenever I went for a job when I immediately was released, I always said, I'm gonna give it my best. But then it started dwindling because I kept hearing no after no after no. I was helped a lot, like I had mentioned, by that deaconess who is my mentor since I was 11 years old, who's also now the godmother of my children. Her name is Mary Teresa Holden. She is light in a storm, through the rain. She pretty much helped me get to where I am today by always being there for me, by filling me up with hope and placing me in the right environments with the right people to pretty much try to fix all of the things that had happened in the past. So I would say she helped me a lot. My grandmother and her immensely.
No, not at all. I didn't have any fears of coming out. I just knew what I wanted, and I knew that that's the only thing that I'm going to be focused on. That's what I'm going to get. It was, in my opinion, there was nothing to be worried about because I didn't see the worst of it, of like being basically like treated less than a human, you know, and having your freedom taken away. That's the scariest thing you could really have, you know, like being at will to somebody else's say so, and there's not much you could really do about it. No matter how many people you call, no matter how many letters you send, it still may not change your situation. So there was not any issues with housing. I mean, I was lucky enough to be able to go back home with my parents. They allowed me to come back, so that was a blessing.
I'm gonna be frankly honest. I didn't have any trouble with housing. Well, I'll take that back. Leaving from Richmond to move here was my hardest struggle. That's so we're going back to 2007. I had left the Salvation Army because, you know, the mattress company wanted me to run the mattress store, actually in Stafford and Ferry Farms. And I ended up leaving because I needed to start December the 1st, which was a Saturday. And I remember calling my probation officer, say, hey, I need to move up here. And she was kind of upset. She's like, listen, you have until, I think it was December the 3rd, I needed to call her with an address and a place to stay. And I was like, man, I got 1 week, 5 business days to find a place. So I was down at my girlfriend's house at the time in King William. And the only place I got real signal from my cell phone was when you left her house, go past King William High School, and they had built this little strip mall where they had a laundromat. And I went there on a Wednesday. Never forget it. It was the Wednesday before December the 1st, the day before Thanksgiving. And I'm calling up here, and I'm calling the Social Security Department. I'm calling probation. I called somewhere else. It was one of those 3 places, and I said, hey, listen, my name is Rudolph Curry. I'd like to find a recovery house, right? I need to find a recovery house. I'm on probation. I need to have a house before the 3rd. And I remember this one guy said, hey, what's your number? I said, here's my number. He said, I'm gonna call you right back. Now, you gotta imagine, it's like 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Everything closes at 4:30. I'm sitting at this place with this girl's car, right? Waiting on clothes to finish washing. He says, I'm gonna call you back. He didn't call me back until after 4 o'clock, and I'm sweating bullets. You know, I'm like, I'm going back to prison. Like, God, this is not what I want. Like, I'm doing all that stuff. He called like at 4 something. Hey, got a pen? I said, yeah. Write this number down. Yolanda Garbett is her name. I need you to call her. She has a place for you. So, okay, sure. I called Yolanda. God rest her soul. She died clean. She said, when can you come there? I said, I can be there tomorrow. She said, Thanksgiving? I said, I can be there. No, it was after Thanksgiving, because Thanksgiving is the 25th. So, yeah. So she said, I can be there tomorrow. She said, okay, meet me here at 5. Now, I told the girl I got to drive from Richmond, no driver's license, to Fredericksburg, which I wasn't scared. I just was like, okay. I drove up here. I get out here to Spotsylvania, and I look at these houses, and I say, listen, stop playing. I don't have time for this. I'm real serious. I need somewhere to stay. This can't be a recovery house. Not from where I come from. And she said, you know, we had conversation. She said, no, this is it. So I ended up getting it. I paid for the place, and that's where I kind of got my housing. Good blessing. Blessing after blessing.
Based on that and your experience in the criminal justice system, do you see a need for change?
Oh, absolutely. I definitely see the need for change and reform. I know that when I was in there, it wasn't a lot of, you got mind that this was back in 2003 to 2007. And from 91 all the way to 2007, I had been in and out of jail and prison. So during my time, there wasn't a lot of reentry stuff at my time. It wasn't a lot of, people who would come in that had survived or changed their lives to the system. Since then, I know there's a lot of different organizations who come in and they do reentry. I think that on the onset of someone getting incarcerated, I think that everyone should go through something like a reentry type of thing, process, to prepare them, to allow them the opportunity to ask those tough questions to agents for change, right? Who have came out, changed their life and doing something different. So they can like have someone who, it's hard to listen to someone if they haven't been through the experience you've been through. And I get it, but it's easier to say, hey Rudy, or hey, Antoine, or hey, Marshall, or hey, Jonathan. It's easier to say something. Hey, how did you do? What about when these tough times, when like your back is against the wall, every door, like, well, how do you deal with it? How do you deal with like your baby mama is doing this, or like how did you not react the same way? And we can say, hey, this is what we did, and that can help them now have some type of quote unquote mentorship through this process, and learn how to navigate through this system that they've been detached from through incarceration. Like those skills that you learned in jail or prison, I'm not saying that they're not needed. You just need to know how to pull those tools out when you need to, not just for this is how we do it in prison, so this is how I'm gonna take care of it. No. That's the same mentality you went in with. You have to change that mentality. Well, on a personal note, I think because I'm in a trial, pending trial, to deal with the charge of really resisting arrest, but you charged me with assault and battery on a police officer. I think that some of the laws, the legislational laws, are so outdated. They need to be changed. They need to be revamped. I think that the war on drugs, I think, is a huge thing. I think that dealing with people coming in and out of jails, I think that's a huge thing. And I also think that dealing with homelessness within the United States of America needs to be evaluated. I think that the legislation is so focused on being so materialistical, or so that we're not helping the people that need the most help. We'd rather help the people that already got everything they want than to help the people that really need the help. I am personally still boggled how we can, as a state, as a United States of America, like, and I'm not knocking any nationality, but it's still hard for me to, in my mind, that you can get people to come over to the United States, you can make them citizens, and you can give them more privileges than you give the people who were born in your country. It's mind-boggling. And so it's like, I think a lot of things just need to be back at the table. But at the bottom line, We need to reach those people in legislation that need the most help. Homelessness, people coming in and out of jails and prisons. Why are we building so many jails? Why are we locking up so many people and keeping them locked away for some tedious and small things? It just doesn't make sense to me. And then you double jeopardy them, right? They do their time, they pay their fines, they come off, they get, reinstated or, get your rights to vote back. Yet at the same time, you hinder them in so many other areas, employment, sometimes even education. Even sometimes, I just got shot down for getting my own truck because of my crime that happened 20 years ago.
I definitely see a need for change and reform. I would happen to say that that whole experience with that girl being covered with a sheet and attacked like a dog pileup, it really shook me. So it's scary because, as I mentioned, a lot of people were discussing that she had a mental health issue. So I really do believe that if she needed a mental health professional, she should have received one immediately at the door, not after they took her out or dragged her out. We don't know what happened to her. The food, again, it's not for human consumption. Like, you're making more people unhealthier. You're in a sense slowly making their health dwindle as well while they're there. Reform as in, I believe the officers need to be trained better, because for someone's freedom to be stripped and for you to encourage that strip of freedom, I just feel like you're in the wrong profession. Like, I don't think you should be making it worse. I think that you should be encouraging people to do better and want to be upstanding citizen once they're released, but who wants to be a citizen after being dogged on the inside, incarcerated. So yeah, I definitely see a lot of ways that there can be a change and reform in the justice system altogether, and that's just inside.
Because the system is all about punishment and money. You have to deal with each person individually, because we all have different needs that need to be met.
My friend was black, and the guy that passed away was shot was black, so I don't think there was much sympathy or anything like that really in the case. I think they saw it as something possibly gang related or just something that they didn't want in their community, so they were very quick to just try to give out a lot of time and not really take into account the self-defense situation of it, the self-defense aspect of it. So that was really unfortunate, because obviously, I understand these injustices, so it makes sense to me why I was not treated as harshly in that situation, and not get as much time, in contrast to if I was African American or Latino or something other than white. Did your friend get a lot of time? He did get a good amount of time. Unfortunately, he said some things in the jail and on the phone and in the courthouse that hurt him in his case, but he still, I think, was sentenced probably unfairly. I believe he got around 10 or 15 years, so he was able to be convicted of murder, but like I said, not a premeditated murder, like a heat of the moment kind of manslaughter situation. But unfortunately, the county he was in too is also known for being very harsh on crimes, and like I said, in areas where things like this don't happen extremely often, or if it's not an inner city area, they're much more likely to, in my eyes, over sentence or try to give out a lot of time, because in their eyes that's how you combat it, is to just give really harsh penalties, because they think for some reason that will put fear in other people to not do these things, or that will teach people something just by giving them a long sentence. But I think a lot of data and a lot of talking to people will prove that that necessarily does not work. You see in other countries where they have different practices and their recidivism rates are much lower and things like that. So I think there's still a lot of work to be done.
It's beyond an even change. I mean, like, it's literally like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's not even about trying to help somebody get rehabilitate or, you know, become better. Like, you have to rehabilitate yourself in there. Like, it's not coming from the incarceration. That just forces you to make a decision to either rehabilitate or become a better criminal. It's one or the other. But like, it's not like nothing that those facilities are doing or have anything to do with trying to actually help you become a better person or help you self-reflect or help you, you know, sort through any type of traumas that you have or whatever it may be. It's just more or less like, okay, what money do you have and how can I squeeze it out of you? And then you have to deal with like the mental aspect of like, don't think that you are any more than just an inmate. You're not a citizen, you're not a human, you are an inmate. Remember that you're an inmate. So it's like, yes, there's plenty of reform that needs to happen inside, outside, all throughout the whole system. Is just trash. So
yeah, I think my perspective was definitely changed by my experience because, you know, I grew up hearing a lot of things about how prison and jail were like from, you know, family and from people like my father and things like that, and media obviously, but like I said, you never really understand it until you experience it yourself. And I think, you know, my main takeaways probably in terms of my perspective of it was just, you know, how unfair the whole process is, right? A lot of it does not make sense. It seems very hypocritical at times. And unfortunately, it's just very unjust in terms of sentencing and treatment across races. You know, people other than white are treated much more unfairly, sentenced much more harshly. And I mean, overall, the treatment isn't great. There's definitely not a lot of resources put in place, I think, to rehabilitate people or really help them be put in a position to succeed when they get out.
There are a lot of things that we could do to change this criminal justice system that, in my mind, wouldn't be that difficult and would not put the community at risk, but would make a humongous difference in the lives of my clients. Some of the things other states are doing is like getting away from the cash bail system, for example, and moving it to where people are getting a bail based on their risk to the community. And so regardless of how much money somebody has, the risk doesn't change as much as you would think that it does. So right now in the system that we have people that are of higher risk to the community, causing more harm to the community, able to get out of jail and keep their jobs and keep their apartments and keep their cell phones turned on because they have cash. And then we have people who are going to lose their job, lose their apartment, lose their stability, who may be in jail for something that's a very low harm crime. And yet there they are suffering the most, where the disenfranchised get disenfranchised further and faster. And it's the same kind of thing with sentencing. When we talk about sentencing guidelines, it's more often sometimes based on crime frequency or repetition, even if it's a low harm crime. And we are underutilizing options to get people the support that they need in order to have enough stability to then start making smarter choices. When you take somebody who's living outside, there's only so many nights you can expect them to sleep outside just in a park before they're going to want to drink themselves to sleep. And so if we could put that resources, all that money that we spend incarcerating people, if we could put them somewhere where they didn't have to drink in order to just be able to fall asleep, that person has a better chance of getting a job. That person has a better chance of becoming a citizen like they really want to be, paying taxes, doing things, going in and out of stores and boosting the economy, all the stuff that we're taking them out of by deciding that they need to be incarcerated in order to try to heal.
So the cause of my criminal activity was drug addiction. I wouldn't have dreamt in a million years that I would be, you know, robbing somebody or even, you know, stealing, cheating, anything. But in drugs, it changes the person. It changes your ability to think properly and to kind of think about the future consequences of your actions. You just think about the now, and you just think about what do I do? What do I need to do to get my sanity back? Because if you've never been addicted to drugs, when you are going through these withdrawals, you go insane. It's the only thing that you can think of, the only thing that you can focus on. And I give an example to people who are not addicted. It's like someone telling you to hold your breath. And as you hold your breath, that panic, the terror, and that loss of control is what you feel whenever these withdrawals hit. And this is what makes people do crazy things when they're addicted.
You see any need for reform or?
Most definitely. The biggest change when it comes to reform, when it comes to returning citizens, is that they're part of the change. In order to have change, you have to let the people that are going through change be part of the change. You have to know that when you are writing legislators, when you are writing these bills, when you are formatting things for individuals that have been incarcerated, they have to be part of that process. They can't be left out. You can't go and give something to someone that doesn't know what this is about. It's a conversation. Talk to them about how laws are going to change. How do you think this is going to be better for your life? Because if you get a no, then that's something that shouldn't come across their format. It's not something that should come across their life. We need to start involving who we're writing about and have them involved in this process to make change. Because to be honest with you, a lot of it's not working, and a lot of it is, don't get me wrong. But the process and the life change is theirs. It's not ours that write these bills. It's not ours that have the things and put them in front of them, and they are forced in positions to where they have to agree to certain things because this is what it is because of your mistake. And we end up seeing that, guess what? More mistakes come, more changes come. And we have to change that part of legislation and part of the things that we do in order to get this corrected. I understand evidence-based practices because that's the percentage of what is given and what is shown that works. My motto is everything's not for everybody. So we have to have that relationship with those individuals to where we're making change, and not just put something in their mailbox and expect for them to open it up and think that it's a good letter.
The fact of how it shaped me from the criminal justice part of this, I feel like that there's so much that I have learned. Just going through the whole process of being incarcerated behind bars and letting kids know or letting adults know that if you get in there behind the jail cell walls and just doing what is right, obeying the law from the inside, it will help you once you get on the outside. Because it just, through the criminal justice part of it, I just feel like things could have been done differently. As far as from the very first time that I was sentenced on a driving charge, I feel like it didn't have to be so harsh. But that was my way of working up to trying to change myself. And I didn't want to take that as a change. I took that as a grain of salt. But later on in life, being incarcerated, as it got harder and harder and harder, it was never a dull moment that I could sit there and say, I don't appreciate being incarcerated. I appreciated the fact of being incarcerated because it helped me make massive changes in my life. It helped me turn my life around. The speed bump that I went over was the last speed bump that I crossed that actually made me turn my life around and say, hey, I don't need to do this again.
Definitely. Most definitely, I do see a need for change. And this is an old rule. I mean, it's an old saying that they say you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. But it's like it's the reverse. You're guilty until you prove your innocence. It's some people sitting in jail that are actually really sitting in there all because somebody went to the magistrate, wrote something, and raise their right hand and say that the person did it, and they actually take them warrants out on them, and if it's bad enough, they no bond you, and they're sitting in there and going through these terrible conditions to go to court and for a judge to say, all right, that wasn't them, they didn't do it. Instead of being the opposite. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're innocent to proven guilty, it shouldn't even, unless it's only my opinion, but unless it's murder or some type of sexual allegations against you, I don't think you should be sitting in jail. Like, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, or you're like rob, if you dumb enough to go up in a bank or something, try to rob something like that. But these other little petty charges they keep locking people up for and not letting them out and make them sit there and all that, that's ridiculous. Like, that needs to be changed completely, and stop putting people with drug habits in jail. Put them in rehabilitation. Help them want to help themselves. Putting somebody in jail for a couple months and you know they've been on drugs for a long time, you're only going to keep them clean for that time, because as soon as you let them out, they're going right back to the same thing. They're not educating them on that. You know what I'm saying? They're not teaching them anything, or they're not going through the motions or anything in there. So they resort to the same thing, and they just keep coming back over and over and over again. And I don't care if it's a person who used drugs or sell drugs, but if you keep getting locked up for the same thing, then you deserve to get some time. But it's a lot of people, it's a lot of innocent people sitting in jail.
Yeah, I see a need for reform. As I mentioned earlier, the state of Maryland has a lot of programs. The state of Virginia, not so much. My experience in the Virginia Division of Corrections is pretty much, if you're locked up, they know you're not breaking the law. They didn't offer a whole lot of things, and the things that some of the things they offered, I wasn't allowed to get because I could never be lower than a level 2 security. I could never be a level 1 for a crime I committed in Maryland 30 years before that. And so I couldn't get work release. I couldn't get a lot of programs that would be outside of the prison because and I was in there for writing checks. I wasn't in there for a violent crime. But they looked at my history from another state.
I mean, what I would say for immediate, I couldn't even tell you, because it's so broad. It's like one of those things like, okay, we have reform, and then you have so many subcategories that coincide with each other that you can't just pinpoint one thing immediately, because you still have to deal with the other variables that come with it. So it's like, it's hard to say, but I would say at least inside the system, inside the facility, maybe like the culture of how they do everything, how they, I guess, programs, and, you know, the training of the CEOs. I mean, because I know you can't be too lax and too friendly, but it's just like, it's definitely, they make sure they degrade you, you know, as a tactic to try to keep power. But but I can't really pinpoint one thing that's immediate that needs to be done, because there's so much that has to be done, and there's a lot of things that's on the same level. It's like a pyramid or, you know, like a huge web of things that all interconnect with each other. So
true. They're locking up a lot of people that have issues, and it's sad because jails, they're not equipped to even handle and deal with them. It's just like, I don't know. Like I said, I've been in a couple different county jails before, and I've been in a federal prison before, but I even been in Virginia State Prison before. But my worst experience that I've ever had has been in Rappahannock Regional Jail. That has been the worst. I've never been in a prison that's supposed to hold you to go to court, but treat you like it's a maximum security prison. I've never been in a prison where you're locked down almost the whole day and you haven't even done nothing. I understand when people get in trouble and they're in solitary and they get 23-1, but to be a regular place like that, no. I've never been in a prison where that 2.5 months I did in there, every day for that whole time we ate peanut butter and jelly with bologna for dinner, because they didn't have enough people to work in the kitchen to cook. So the only time they gave you a hot meal was at breakfast. But yeah, that one right there, that one will break anybody. I don't care how strong of a man you are, how strong of a woman you are, that jail there will break anybody.
So many times people go to jail or prison and they have a relationship experience with God. How about you? Is that something that you felt like you experienced?
I started reading the Bible in prison. Then there was a man that I met in the county jail here in Fredericksburg named Jack Richards. He was instrumental in my biblical education. I took a theology course in prison. The teacher was amazing. It was in Deep Meadows. He was a gangbanger, former gangbanger criminal, and he reached out to the Lord, and the Lord's using him today as a theology teacher in the Division of Corrections in Virginia. I'm not sure. Maybe it's because they're tired of living like that. Maybe God finds them. You know, maybe He's got a plan for everybody, and I believe if you're to the point you want to surrender to Him, He's going to use you in that plan. Criminal justice system. But that's why I first started reading Scripture and started praying, and then that's why I started seeing people like the theology teacher. I mean, he was in the Richmond Penitentiary for like 20 years, and I asked him how he went from that to this, and he was a Muslim. He said, I prayed to Allah, and he goes, Jesus Christ showed up instead. Ooh. That's what he told me, and he gave his life to the Lord, just the same way Mr. Richards did.
Absolutely, I wouldn't have made it through without him, and no one can tell me any different. I just experienced so many miracles, you know, when I was incarcerated that, yeah, it was just, like I say, unbelievable, you know. God healed me of a hernia. COs laid their hands on me when they wasn't even supposed to be touching me because God told them to pray for me.
I think you provide them with what is true first, which is the Word of God, a good understanding of what the Word of God is. At the end of the day, though, much of their success is going to depend on where they find truth. If it's in themselves, then it's going to be a revolving door. They're going to continue doing the same thing. If they find truth in God, then that is an anchor that's going to hold them, and then their life will begin to change. Then they'll absolutely change, and it won't be so much of a struggle. The change will come naturally because He gives them a new heart. So I tell people in the jail all the time, you have to have a heart transplant. That's the only way you're going to really survive. There's a lot of things that could have, would have, and should have happened. So that's the thing about truth, though. This is the reality that we live in. And it's amazing, though. It amazes me how we question God like that and say, well, you could have done this and you couldn't have done this. But when you go to court and that judge is about to lay down the law, you don't say, well, you could let me go. You could do this and you could do this. No, this is the law. This is what it is. So we're facing reality. So when it's sad, but I tell people in the jail, when you talk to God, talk to Him like you're talking to the judge, because everybody knows how to come correct when it's time to talk to the judge. So there's a lot of things you can question in life. But the question is not, well, why isn't my life better? You know, because that can go the other way. Why isn't your life even worse? You know, why are you still alive and your friend that you were in the room with overdosed? Why that?
That walk is, we're believers. We are true believers. And I believe that in the blessings of God that we are that. And more so that with that walk that we have, we're here to save souls. We're here to change lives. We are here not just for us, but for people to have an impact on us and for us to have an impact on them. For us to say, look, you know, not just that mistake, but guess what? We make them daily. We make them daily. And it doesn't define who we are, but it doesn't make us what we're going to be. Because in those mistakes, in those failures, are things that are greater than us. It's that recognition. It's that part of where I realize maybe I made this mistake, but it was an opening eye experience for me to understand, what do I do next? Where am I going next? And sometimes those mistakes can turn into great and powerful statements, powerful walks. And I think with that, if we start finalizing people's lives and letting them know that that mistake is not a hindrance and that they can move forward from that, because there is hope. And a lot of people lose that because of their mistake, thinking that there is not hope. That definition of your mistake is not your life. You have so much more to give, so much more opportunity for people to realize who you are. And we as individuals have to take that time and recognize who people are and build that relationship on their life and not on their mistake. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not different than that person that makes that mistake. I'm not different than that person that goes out and does something for their family. I'm really not any different. But the difference between me is that I want to make sure that people don't feel that anxiety that brings them to a point to where they think that they've lost the hope and that they've lost the feeling of knowing that there's no one out there to actually help them. So that difference in me in the mistake is not different than anybody else. I think the difference about me is that I care about people. I tell my clients and my people and my returning citizens all the time, I said, I could care less about your charge. I care about your life. And I think that's the difference for me.
Good. I didn't change till after I'd done all this time. When I got released the last time in 2012, I stayed clean sober for about a year. I got off probation and then started using again. I continued to use and my life got so miserable and I knew I was either going back to prison or die. And I tried everything. I tried everything I could think of. And it came a point where I decided to try something else, somebody else's way, and for me that was Jesus Christ. I reached out to him with a sincere heart because I knew that I would never stop on my own devices. And he picked me up and delivered me from that addiction that day, and I haven't used since. The triggers,
You are today.
yes. For the person I am today, I embrace the scripture, I embrace Jesus Christ, and I embrace helping people that have been through what I've been through. Because for me, the way I look at it, like a lot of people have given up hope because of their age or they're in prison. And I'm a walking testimony that it's not too late. You don't have to give up hope. A lot of people have written themselves off, and Jesus Christ has a better plan for them, and it's never too late.
Yes, it's not that I don't have peace, but something in me just wants to talk with her. Yes. Yeah, actually it was a lady, and I didn't know her that long, but she was a little older than me, but we used to play around a lot. And, I know that I shouldn't have been playing around with a gun, but, I guess I was young and immature at the time, and it just kind of changed my whole world around, and I had trouble, forgiving myself, that was the hardest part, just forgiving myself. And her sister had wanted to come and see me because she said God was telling her to come and talk to me. But after she spoke to the detective, she didn't want to talk to me anymore, So I never got a chance to really explain to her and tell her what happened. But I did get a chance to turn around in the courtroom and apologize to her and the family, that it was a tragic accident, and, if I could exchange my life for hers, I would,
What other types of hidden talents did you find?
I think that I really kind of tapped into myself, and I really kind of tapped into who Jesus was and what he can do in my life. And that's the only meaningful thing that I could connect it to. Everything else was, survival of the fittest.
What influenced my personal growth was the fact of the amount of time and money I was losing by sitting in there. Like, it really hit me as, you get tablets while you're in there, so you get to read like little magazine articles, and I always went to the finance stuff because I'm deep into the crypto industry, and it's like I'm seeing everything that's going on, and it's like, wow, I was really on this, I was just about to do that, and just missing out on a lot of like actual growth. All the stuff that I was working for was put on standstill, or actually kind of fell apart because of the situation I was in. So it's like that was a big like motivator to move forward and kind of like make sure that I, you know, do better once I, you know, do something different and do it better.
So now I'm in ministry in the community, and when I see that person slumped over on heroin, you know, skin is just destroyed because of whatever drugs that they're taking, and it looks absolutely hopeless. Like this person is on the verge of just slumping over and just dying. I remember my times of hopelessness. It never got that bad for me, but I remember my times of hopelessness, and I remember wondering if God could fix me. I remember asking God, man, can you like Ezekiel, can you make these bones live again, I guess. And I think about and remember what he's done in my life, and that gives me hope when I see these other lives, and I understand that it is 100% possible. And that is what gives me the drive to continue fighting for it. And you're not going to save everybody. We can't save anybody, but not everyone is going to be have a, you know, this great story at the end of the day. But if God can do it for me, he can do it for anybody.
The most positive experience that I've had throughout my incarceration, I would say that living and learning the experience of being incarcerated. Just knowing that the hardship, the trials, the tribulations, the ups and downs that I had from being incarceration and taking my family and my kids through everything, the most positive thing that I can say is that I lived and I learned my lesson. I have done just about everything possible to keep from being incarcerated ever again. So the most positive thing that I could say is, while being incarcerated, my counseling was talking to God, just speaking to God, going to every Bible study, going to church, inside, reading my Bible, just trying to encourage someone else that this was not the right decision. Talking to family on the outside, and they knew that once I did this time, that it was gonna have an impact on me.
I would say I definitely met a lot of cool people in there. I would say, like I told people before, I mean, the people that I was actually locked up with, I appreciated them more than the people that are actually out here. Way more respectful, way more insightful, you know. They actually speak about something with meaning, you know, because nobody want to be in there talking about nonsense all day. So it's like a lot more intellectual conversations. But I definitely met a lot of people that I mean, I built meaningful connections with. Like my cellmate, still talk to him to this day. And like the age range of people that I met was kind of crazy too. I mean, people that's like 60s, 70s, people that was, you know, younger than me. You know, it's just like, it was a lot of different like perspectives and knowledge that was being passed around. It's that I appreciated a lot. You know, it kind of helped time go past because it gives you something to think about while you're sitting in the bunk waiting for the next morning to come.
So like I say, I surrounded myself with a bunch of wonderful Christian brothers. I don't know what it is about me, but you know, a lot of COs took to me. So even though I was incarcerated, you know, I had a lot of favor, you know, because of the way that I carried myself and who I was, you know, as a person. And you know, they say that there's no such thing as a model inmate, you know, but I say different, you know, because a lot of guys, you know, they looked up to me. Some of the staff members, even from the way I made my bed, they would come and take pictures like, have you ever been in the military, you know? But I just wanted to, you know, stand out, be different. I wanted to leave different, with a different mindset than.
When I finally decided that I needed to change was when I realized that My brother had gone off to school. My mom was living down in Spotsylvania, but my dad was still staying in Springfield. And I realized that if I didn't get it together, that they were just going to worry about me all the time. And I was going to court. I want to say I was going to court for my third and fourth charges while already on pretrial probation for my first 2 charges. I really got a lot done in 1 year. I got arrested 4 separate times in 1 year between 18 and 19. And I got to court and the judge said, well, you look familiar. And I said, yeah, I've been here a little bit lately. And I had a big green mohawk at the time, so I was pretty identifiable. So they said, well, you haven't started your treatment on your first charge yet. So we're going to consider you a first-time offender. And we're going to roll all of this into one big case, basically. And we're going to give you a chance to either do everything right, and then you can get these charges dismissed, or you don't do it right, and then you're going to have to face all 4 of these different charges. And I said, okay, I think I can do that. And that day I got put on probation, pretrial. I got assigned to take ASAP and ADS classes, the shoplifting prevention class, and to do community service. And that day I left court. I went down to where a friend of mine worked at the time, Springfield Butcher, and I said, man, I need a job. I need to work so much that I don't have the energy to get in trouble or to go out at night. And that's the day I started working there. I moved back into my parents' house where my dad was, and I just said, this is it for me. I want to have a life where people aren't disappointed and to where I don't have to keep losing people. And it just clicked. I don't know what happened. It just clicked for me.
As we bid farewell to the next to last chapter of our journey, we're left with a profound sense of admiration for the resilience and tenacity of those who have shared their stories with us. Each narrative is a testament to the human spirit's capacity to endure, to overcome, and also to thrive in the face of adversity. Their journeys, though fraught with obstacles, serve as a beacon of hope for all who dare to dream of a brighter tomorrow. As we reflect on the challenges and triumphs recounted, let us carry with us the lessons learned and the wisdom gained from their experiences. Join us next time as we embark on the final leg of our exploration, where we bear witness to the culmination of our returning citizens' journeys and celebrate the triumph of the human spirit over adversity. As we approach the culmination of our journey, we're reminded of the transformative power of resilience and the unwavering human spirit. In this final chapter, we bear witness to the culmination of years of struggle and sacrifice as our returning citizens confront the daunting task of reconciliation and redemption. Their stories, though fraught with hardship and adversity, are a testament to the enduring capacity for growth, healing, forgiveness. Join us as we embark on the final leg of our exploration, delving into the lives of those who have dared to defy the odds and emerge triumphant in their quest for redemption. While you were incarcerated, was there any type of rehab that was available to you, and also did you participate in it?
My church, FAILSAFE, CBTP, the Christian Brother Transition Program. The Lord has been great in blessing me with people in my life that have really, I won't say taken the place of my parents, but filled those spaces. And I remember when my mother and my father died, I asked myself, man, what happens to that love that your parents have for you, like this massive, and you feel it, you know it. And I've come to realize that the Lord takes that love and divides it up and he puts it in his heart, in the hearts of other people. And you can see it in his people as they love you and they treat you like their own. So I think that is what happens to that love. When I was incarcerated, I was in school. I was in Bible college. I was a student at Cornerstone College of Virginia here in Fredericksburg. So I was a student there, and also my church home. They were awesome. They were there 100%. My pastor was there 100%. He would visit me when I was in jail. We would do one-on-one Bible studies when I was in jail. So that support system for me was 100% there during the time that I was in there, and also when I got out. I had a place to land whenever I got out. That is important. If you don't have a place to land, what you're going to do is you'll fight for as long as you can, but you end up going right back to the thing that you know, which is, in a lot of cases, it is crime. So that support system is huge and it's important.
The resources that I have towards navigating back into society was FAILSAFE-ERA, which helped me to maneuver to try to figure out my job resources, and going into FAILSAFE-ERA, just knowing that each time that I could go in there and get on the computer and learning things. And some of my other resources was Christian Brothers and Christian Sisters Transitional Program that gave me some knowledge of talking to Chaplain Jack, talking to Jill, who was the chaplains of the jail, knowing that I had some, like I say, the day that I entered back into society, I entered into Christian Brothers and Christian Sisters Transitional Program that day. As far as getting out and doing something positive from day one. Never would I ever want to go to doing something negative. So my thing was always doing something positive. So CBTP and CSTP and FAILSAFE-ERA, Toastmasters, different groups that I was attending, going to church, talking to different ministers and stuff like that, it made me think that I am someone.
I was in the Virginia Department of Corrections during a time where they was implementing a big push for reentry. This is when they implemented the cognitive communities. It was a crazy time in the system because it was at a point where a lot of guys had did a lot of time and was just being released, and now they were more or less being forced to take these programs, which is a hard push for somebody who did 10, 15, 20 years, and now you want to tell them they got to go in productive citizen classroom setting. But yes, I am a product of the reentry cognitive community. I completed productive citizenship, thinking for a change, actually facilitated a few of the programs as well. To be completely honest, I feel like a lot of the programs that are offered as a way of reentry are cosmetic at best. I say that no one understands that I'm not the average inmate neither, if I can say that. So I feel like all of these things are great once those have already made up their minds themselves. Again, the cognitive community, these programs was offered within like 6 months of going home, which if you done did 5 years and you 6 months out planning, I think you already late. Again, at the time when I was in, they were just implementing these things like this, like there was nothing prior to that. So, I think it was cosmetic. I think the curriculum was real elementary, but keeping in mind, but you may need to meet some guys there. So whereas, I won't say that the curriculum was a waste, but I think I think it need to be risk assessments done on the individual person, and you address the individual person. I think it's hard to have, you know, one size fit all for so many different variations. First and foremost, I would say that all the blessings are coming by way of Allah, the creator and sustainer of all that exists. But I've been blessed to have a strong support system by way of my family. Also, I was blessed to meet Mrs. Juanita back in the early days of my release and the birthing stages of Fading the Company. And you know, our objectives aligned, and you know, I attribute a lot of FAILSAFE and you know the networking that I've done by way of FAILSAFE, as well as the FAILSAFE board. I am a returning citizen on the FAILSAFE board.
There definitely was not much help in terms of any of those things. Luckily, the most impactful person I had met inside was Chaplain Jack. Someone from my family had called and the jail and told them that they knew my behavior could probably be pretty obscene or something because of those circumstances, that I was likely to act out or you know, get out of character. So luckily the jail had Chaplain Jack come and speak to me, and he really helped me find a little bit of peace and you know, give me some hope for when I got out, because he spoke of the support group they had and things like that. But in terms of mental health and education, I mean, really, I guess the only education I was able to make use of was just books inside of the jail. I had already gotten my GED, so after the GED program, that was pretty much it, and there wasn't really any instructions on how to do correspondence courses with colleges, or if they were even allowed, and things like that. And then mental health, unfortunately, was also pretty unheard of at the time. Unfortunately, they didn't have a lot of mental health counselors or therapists in the jail for, you know, a lot of reasons, I'm sure. And so, you know, I wrote request forms, I think, at one point every day for like months to see a mental health professional, just to have someone to help me in this stage of, you know, trying to find rehabilitation and trying to work on myself and do better. And yeah, I think I saw a woman one time that I actually knew from a juvenile program I used to be in, and she was great, and I planned to continue seeing her, but then she ended up, you know, switching jobs. And so it seemed like, honestly speaking, they would have rather have you see a psychiatrist and have you be prescribed some mental health medication instead, you know, in contrast to having you see a mental health professional and trying to talk through some of these things. So
my family is very supportive. You know, they love me dearly, but at the end of the day, it's up to me. Do I want it? How bad do I want it? How bad do I want to stay out here, you know? And me making a lot of positive changes in my life and my family seeing it, you know, it you know, helps them. You know, it gives them encouragement and motivation.
I was really depressed inside. You know, at the time I didn't talk to many people. I think that towards the end, I started to try to look at the brighter side of things, because I did have one person in my life that even came to visit me without it being like on a video or behind a gate or any of that. She was actually allowed in due to her being I believe it was like a deacon. So they allowed her to visit me. She prayed with me. She prayed over me. So even though I know that I didn't have a lot of familial support growing up, as well as attaching myself to someone who I thought cared for me and never did, I do remember her coming to visit me to give me hope that things will be brighter. So the day that I actually was released, which was a surprise because I was coming from the hole on another charge, I just felt that God really showed me hope when he opened the doors, because I was amazed that I was leaving. I originally was incarcerated for a distribution. The last 8 days of my sentence, I ended up having an argument with a female inside, and I had a tray, and I went to hit her with it, and then they put me in a hole. So the last 8 days, I was really worried because I was facing a charge from the inside. I don't know what happened to that charge, but when they called me to get my bag, I thought I was going to court. They was releasing me. So that was God.
All right, so I was blessed to be able to go back to school, and I got a master's degree in theological studies from Cornerstone College of Virginia. And with that, I'm teaching at the school now. So I teach apologetics at the school, and apologetics is defending the faith, defending the Christian faith. You probably can hear it a little bit when I'm talking, because I'm always practicing. But I teach how to defend the Christian faith against, you know, whatever. So I'm doing that, and I also started a nonprofit, and it's called Tragedy to Triumph. And I called or named it that because it is the story of my life. It's a tragedy. Man, I used to be so sad all the time. And then it was my tragedy, and it's God's triumph, because He's given me joy that I'm very, very thankful for now. And I also work with the Christian Brothers Transition Program. It's a brother-sister nonprofit with FAILSAFE. So we work very, very closely together to help people transition from their tragedy to their triumph.
From a 12-step perspective, I share my trueness in meetings, or if I'm asked to speak at certain conventions or speaker jams, or with not just within the state. I mean, I go wherever I want to go if someone asks. 2, if I would love to get back into going to the deep departments of corrections or jails and talking to people and letting them know, like, hey, you can survive out of here. That's some of the things I would like to continue doing. 3, whether I'm on my job and God runs this relationship in my path, I try to meet them where they're at. I try to give them my wisdom, the experiences that I have, and how I've kind of came on our other side. In my family life, I'm trying to always constantly change. I'm always constantly trying to get better. And that's what I encourage my children to do. I encourage people that's using drugs, people that's, struggling to, like, hey, I can't stop doing this and I'm gonna find myself locked up. No, you don't have to, you choose to. It's gonna hurt, it's gonna be painful, right? You just gotta endure, it's something better on the other end. But so I do it in every facet of my life. I don't hold back. I tell you, I try to be true to myself and be truthful to other people.
I guess my aha moment was when I got arrested in Maryland for a firearm charge. It was like I wasn't even doing anything. I was going to a Airbnb party with my friends, stuff like that. It was supposed to be like a joint celebration for my birthday. Literally, it was like a day or two after my birthday. And it's like I'm facing this charge off of me just trying to go have fun, random profiling situation. It's like I gotta kind of like clean it up and move a little bit more, organized and structured. So that was really my biggest aha moment.
It's when I train new staff and new volunteers, one of the things they ask me the most often is, how do I reach the students? How do I reach the clients? How do I make sure that they know I care? And sometimes I have to say, I don't know how you're gonna do it, because I do use my story immediately when I'm working with clients, because I want them to be comfortable talking to me, because I get it. I know why we do some of the things that we do. And so I've always had a habit of being very transparent about my record and about my story with my clients and my students, because I feel like it provides them with an atmosphere where they feel safe. And sometimes that can be hard to navigate for people that have never experienced it, but luckily with enough empathy, then anything tends to kind of work out.
I received a letter from my husband at the time. He was incarcerated on the other side. So we had got it so that we could contact each other inside, because we was married. We got married the day of our conviction for that reason. And under his guys said that we was gonna be okay because they wouldn't make us testify on each other. I was young, very unknowledgeable, so I believed him. So we were discussing the trial, and I remember him specifically saying, if they ask you anything, don't say anything against me, blah, blah, blah. And then that same day, I received a summary of what the police officer had said during the time of my arrest. So this was like trial papers that was coming up in the papers. I had already discussed with my lawyer before. She had already said numerous times, you shouldn't be his co-defendant. You should talk against him to get a lesser charge, or so that we could drop your charges. At the time, I did not believe that was a good idea, because from how I was raised, my father, my parents, my friends, I just was thinking loyalty and all those good things. But pretty much what happened was, I seen in the description, in the summary, where at the time of my arrest, when they had walked him down the highway, it was like the side of the highway in front of the hotels, he had walked him to a stairwell at the Ramada Inn and pretty much walked him to a drug package he had placed there. And in the summary, it said in quotation marks exactly, his words was, "These are the drugs that we were selling." So the revelation happened when I realized that I think he was just using me the whole time so that I wouldn't talk against him, but all along he had already talked against me to make it seem like I was the one that was selling drugs, or we, or however, so that I could be locked up for the rest of my life. And I was just manipulated. I didn't know at the time that that would happen. I didn't know previously in the beginning of my first incarceration that this had happened. All of the letters had aligned to be, I love you, we should be together, we're gonna be married, and we're gonna be fine. When I seen the letter happen to be him saying, stick to your gut, don't talk against me, not we, me, and then I seen the summary of his sentence as we, I just knew then at that point that I placed myself there by myself, because I was literally
like being a peer out in the community, like yes, because that's like my way of giving back and sharing my story, because I know that what I had to go through wasn't just for me, but it's for me to share with someone else.
Failsafe. That's what I'm talking about, Failsafe. You're the lady that called with a scholarship. I didn't know you at the time. And Jack Richards said, yeah, we do have somebody that came out of prison that wants to go to college. The more I learn, the more I want to learn. I'm getting straight A's in college. I'm on the way getting to an associate's degree in theology and ministry.
Yes. I should be starting soon, but yes, I'm going to get some professional counseling and, just because I hold a lot in, I hold a lot in, and I just got to release it and continue to allow God to work on me and heal me from the inside out. I don't know where she is, but yes, I would like to talk to her one-on-one and just, tell her what happened. And I know that I can never bring her, but just apologize, That was like the greatest feeling in the world. That was the greatest feeling in the world.
It sucks. The actual, how to put it, the life inside the cell itself is cramped. You have to have a lot of like understanding and ground rules with your cellies, so nobody have any misunderstandings and miscommunication, because you gotta sleep next to that person, and there's people in there that in there for murder. Like my next door cellmate, whatever you call it, he was a murderer. So the thing is, you gotta understand that you have to respect the person that you actually are basically living with. So it's difficult at times. It's definitely difficult at times, but if you have somebody that you can actually kind of I guess you'll say vibe with, and have the same understanding and same hygiene standards and stuff like that, then you'll be all right. But Yeah, it can get rough though. It definitely can get rough. Yeah, I mean, like I literally was able to touch both sides of the walls, like where I stretched my arms out. I mean, I'm a pretty lanky dude, but still, like it's a pretty small space, you know. So it's like it was plenty of people that actually got in physical altercations because they cellmate wasn't washing or, you know, being the hygiene was horrible, you know. I don't know if they were scared to come out or that's just what they culture or what they did or whatever it was, but it definitely started a lot of altercations off of that. So, yeah, well, I mean, it can come from either an inmate smuggling it in or a CEO smuggling it in. I mean, but there's plenty of it in there, though. Plenty of it in there. I mean, I didn't seen it. I mean, I have friends and family that's incarcerated. The stories they tell me, like, yeah, it's very accessible. It's way more accessible than you think it would be, and like the only thing that's different is just priced a lot different. That's it. But it's very accessible. Whatever you really want, you can find it.
In my experience working in this field as a case manager, and then I worked for a lot of years inside of jail teaching classes, and then now as the reentry director for FAILSAFE, it's interesting because I don't see people being treated equitably across the same types of charges. I do see a big skew when it comes to gender, when it comes to age, and when it comes to race. And I will always say, and people, you know, I make it a joke, but it's not really. I always say that the reason that I got such a great deal when I had been arrested 4 times in 1 year is because I was an 18-year-old white woman. I had all of the privileges. We talk about intersectionality. My goodness, did I get a deal that I've never seen anybody else get with that frequency of charge history. So I never even had to pay a real bond. And so it's one of those things that upsets me because I can't make that system change. But what I can do is I can try to look at each one of my clients based on who they are, regardless of.
If you think it can't happen to you, given enough time and the right circumstances, the person that you see and you think, man, I can never, ever, ever be that person. I guarantee you, if the right ingredients are in that pot, this is what you get. And you should never look at yourself and think, oh man, you know, because of me, my life is not that way. It's because of God and because of circumstances you're surrounded by. I think our society has gone wrong in that there's no absolute truth in our society. Everyone gets to define what right and wrong is. And if you allow and teach children that there are no consequences, that everything that they do, it must be accepted by everyone else, it gives them a sense of entitlement, and then they begin to do whatever they want. And I think it's quite a shame that you would teach children that, because then when they act accordingly, you lock them up and you put them in prison. So first of all, you teach them that they're animals. We all came from animals. That, you know, God is not a creator, and that we just came from, you know, whatever. And then when they act like animals, you put them in a cage. You teach them that there are no real consequences, that everyone has to kind of acquiesce to whatever they want. And then when they do that, you lock them up forever. So it's a trap, and it's a scheme, and it's unfair. But I think the family unit has to be restored in our society. The male has to be put back in the home in all of our society. And I think that headship in the home, if that man looks to God for answers and absolute truth, that'll be the beginning of the change in our society. So it starts with the family.
Wow, where did we go wrong? We've let go of that village. We've let go of that village.
What's the village?
That village is family. We've let go of family. And I'm not saying everyone, but we've left go of that part of that grandmother, that grandfather that was like saying no when they meant no, reprimanding you, you will not go through this gate to mess up my beautiful place that I've created, because this is something for you. we forgot to listen. We forget that the percentage rate becomes lower from our actual life given to someone else because we don't listen. And we don't give that feedback of who we are and what we stand for. That is being diminished in the family. And we fix it with things like this. Letting people know who we are and where we came from and how it is not just change, but to listen and to recognize that there are things out there that can help us move forward. And I don't just mean in your mistake, but in your life. There are things that are set in your way that need to be seen. And we need to open up those spiritual eyes and start closing our ears to what we hear by man and start listening to what he's telling us. Because right now, a lot of us are being told things that are not truthful. And when we act on that, it doesn't help us in the least. So I want to tell you today, not just having your mistake and knowing that it doesn't define you, let it deliver you. Because the change that's going to come within you is going to make you more powerful, and people are going to see that. And people are going to know that even in that person's character, they didn't waver. That's what's going to sustain people. While we continue to work together and know that if we tell our stories, a lot of the times people don't tell their stories, so we don't get to hear what is actually happening. But as we continue to tell our stories, someone's going to see this and say, that was me. I didn't get to tell my story. That was me. They didn't get to hear about my life. That was me. I wish I had the chance. Now we're making the chances. Now we're making it happen. And this is what's going to move the community, not just here, but throughout states, beyond countries, because that's what it's about. We're not here alone, we're here together. And in order to make change, we have to be together on one accord. He doesn't change anything. He keeps things the same. We make the mistakes to change what has been given to us. So let's start listening. So the change that we do have only comes from him. So we can change the things in others so they can see him as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow. So what advice would you offer to those who are still incarcerated, to families, to the communities, or those who have been released?
You gotta put God first and foremost. Not just in there, but out here. You know, you have to carry God everywhere. Because like I said, I wouldn't have made it almost 16 years without him, you know. And yeah, you have to keep God first. You have to. At first I didn't, but now I realized that I should have got counseling a long time ago. Because I feel like counseling, they'll try to like brainwash you and try to, you know, make you, you know, think a certain way but like I said, now I've realized that I do need counseling. I do need to, you know, share what I went through with a professional and not be ashamed on, you know, about what I've been through, what I experienced, and go from there.
So, as a supervisor and a case manager for Virginia Cares and People Incorporated, giving back is what I love doing, because I've seen people right where I was, and it wasn't until I started realizing that my position and my walk of what I went through was going to be the answer for what other people needed. It was the answer for those that needed housing. It was the answer for those that, how do I get certain things, you know, in this environment to where people look at me so differently that they could care less about my life. And I went through that, and I went through that walk. And I want people to know, to understand that there are people out there like myself that care about you. And in this position where we help, When you talk about it takes a village, it takes more than a village. It takes people that have a caring heart to commit in doing things to help those that sometimes feel like that they can't help themselves. So yeah, in that position, I found out that this helps people. And it's odd to have a mistake and walk through your mistake knowing that it's gonna save lives.
I would say if they're locked up, all right, two things. Trouble don't last always, right? Hold on, pain ends, all right? But that requires a sacrifice, all right? You have to get away from the old and do something different. And there's people here to help you. Same thing. Because I used to talk to the youth at the juvenile jail. I talk to them the same. Because they already try to think like they're an adult. They think they're grown. And so sometimes you have to give it to them the way they need to hear it, you know. But at the same time, I think that mentorship is probably the best thing for the youth. Positive mentorship.
Do you think we live in a hopeless society?
I think hopeless is a strong word. I think that yes, we do. Hopeless. But some don't see the rainbow through the darkness. They feel like there's no hope for them. They feel like, hey, because I'm black, I can't get this, or because I did this, I can't do that. Hey, I got this crime over my head, and no one's going to give me a chance, and like I just might as well just settle. Right? I might as well just settle than to try to achieve something different.
Everyone deserves a second chance. You know, don't be so quick to judge. You know, get to know a person first. You know. Because until you understand the person's past, you won't understand their present. You know, it's like unless you open the book and read it, you won't know what's on the inside.
I talk to them about services, and I talk to them about what my walk is, and I let them know that you too can change. You too can have a mindset that's open to things that you want your life to be like. I go into institutions and jails throughout the state to let people know that there is a chance for you to make a difference and make a mark. And when I go in there and I talk to individuals, the thing is, it's just not different. Their ideas are impactful. Their things that they want to put together to form programs are impactful. And I listen to those because, see, that's what's going to make change. When you're talking to someone who's been incarcerated for so many years, there are things that they see that we don't see. So we have to start listening to what they're doing there and what they see to make change on the outside so we can bring it in and then be part of their environment. We can't just shut them off. We have to be in the midst of and be right where they are and understand that, guess what? It only just takes listening. That's really all it does. They want someone to hear them. They don't want to be blindsided and listen to someone that could care less about them and over-talking them and not caring about their life and family as well. Right now, the biggest percentage you would not believe are senior citizens. Over 55, the population has grown tremendously. Now, what does that say about us? That we're not taking care of our elderly? Is that what it's become? Because if that's so, then we really need to make a change. My biggest aspect when I go in there, I want them to physically see what's being done to them. I'll take an 18-year-old and I'll take a guy who's 70 or 80 years old, still incarcerated, and I let them look at each other. And I tell the young man, is this the life that you want to have? It's not to embarrass anybody or anything like that, but you have to let them see the physicalness of what their life can become. And that's not it, to have someone 18 looking at an 80-year-old to say, that's going to be my life. So the reality of them knowing that life needs to change, it needs to change early. And that's where it begins. pre-release now with our returning citizens is more important than anything. Getting in there and sitting down with them and finding out what it is that they need. And I feel that's best when you bring the source to them, when you bring all of those things for housing and jobs and education and stuff like Miss Juanita has here with FAILSAFE. When you bring that into the institutions and they find out that there is someone that they're going to see that's going to be so impactful on their lives when they get out, that's what's going to be important to them. Because see, then that changes their whole dynamics and it changes their whole outlook on what and who they are and how they're going to serve for the rest of their lives, because they got someone who they can be impactful with, and that's what's important.
The advice that I would give to anybody that's still serving time right now is keep getting out of bed in the morning. Keep getting out of bed in the morning. No more, no less that I know that what was going to take place today, that, you know, whatever incident that caused my incarceration arise, there's also going to be a day that you can wake up and you can put your feet on the ground. There's going to be carpet underneath of it. And you're going to have all the opportunities that was afforded you before your current situation.
The advice that I could give to a female in general, because I feel like I didn't have a lot of knowledge on my drug usage. I feel like now that if I had to give some positive motivation or encouragement to someone that is incarcerated or is going through the same situations of what I went through, I would say trust God. Let people know that whatever your problem is, it's so many resources out here that you can always talk to someone. And I kept so much on the inside. I never released that. So I feel like if you talk about your problem, there's someone that can help you with your problem. So that's my positive motivation, to be an encourager now, to let people know that if it's anything that you're going through, talk to someone that has experienced what you are experiencing. And that lets them know that you're not ashamed of what you have done and what you have been through, because the more you talk about your problems, the more that it will reach someone that is going through that, and how many changes that it can make or the impact it can put on someone else. I would say my last words as far as what I have dealt with in life would be, life is not as hard as it seems. You have to pick up yourself. If you feel like you're falling, pick yourself up. Never for a dull moment. When it rains, I'm sure it pours. But if we look up, never look down, we won't ever stumble and fall.
Okay, so from a secular perspective, I would say you have to realize that you don't have the answers. You have to go to a greater mind than your own. There are people in this world who have, traveled the road that you're on. There are people that are willing to help you. Don't X everyone out and just think, man, I've had a rough life and people have treated me terribly my entire life. That could absolutely be true, but you have to give people a chance to help. Honesty is, it's an amazing, it's like a superpower, because what you tell people could possibly turn them off, but being honest with them will give them the ability and the tools to really be able to help you. So find people who are smarter than you, hang around them. People who are playing the game, lying, cheating. If you hang around these people, eventually you're going to go right back into what it is you've come out of or attempted to come out of. So surround yourself with, I would say to the younger people, surround yourself with older people because of their experience, smarter people because of their knowledge and wisdom, and don't talk so much. I tell people that all the time. If you're talking, then you're not gathering and taking in the wisdom that people can give you. So silence is a superpower too.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I always try to tell people, like, you can't say that you love yourself if you don't give yourself the proper respect to actually, like, do better when you know you need to. Like, ignorance is just the lack of knowledge. So it's like, okay, you can let that pass because you don't know any better. That's what ignorance is. But, like, when it comes down to actually, like, willful ignorance, that's just actually you forcing yourself to keep doing things that you know that you shouldn't do. Willful ignorance is a better way of saying stupidity. So, like, you can't just keep on doing that to yourself and then saying that you have respect for yourself and you got love for yourself. That's not true. So it's like you have to really be truthful and honest with yourself if you really say that you love and respect yourself. My spirituality, for the most part, honestly, I mean, I've done a lot. Like, I would say I'm more or less like a lone wolf. I mean, like, I just pray, meditate. I see something that I am interested in. I dive deeper into it and, you know, get fixated on it, and I just go for it from there. And just, yeah, I mean, that's literally all I got. So that's just what I do. Just, yeah. That's hard to say, I guess. Like, cause I mean, it's like a universal thing. It's just like, don't fail that, like, that inner child, like that childhood you. Don't disappoint that person. Just don't disappoint that little you. That person still exists inside. Cause, like, at the end of the day, you being the best you will always make everybody around you happy. So it's all about you, and it has to start with you and it has to end with you. So it's like, if you're not doing what you're supposed to do for you and you're only sitting there trying to do things to appease other people, yeah, they might, oh yeah, you're doing good, but you're not making yourself happy. It's going to make you just relapse into something else. You have to start with you and end with you. And if people truly love and appreciate you, they're going to see what you're doing and love you for it. So, I don't know, the message to my mother and my father, thank you for being there. That's it. Thank you for sticking by me. It's been a rough road, but I appreciate it.
Don't give up. That's all I can tell anybody. Don't give up. It's not the end of the world, and it's always, if you're determined, it's gonna be a better way. You just gotta figure and find that way. Stay strong, stay focused. Don't be influenced don't let nobody influence you in there. Stay sane, really. And a lot of people be in jail, they can't deal with it and they medicate themselves. Like, they never was taking psych medications before, then they get in jail and all of a sudden they want to take that, then you're addicted to prescribed medications. So just stay strong, pray up, that's all, just pray to God.
When I think about people that are currently incarcerated, I'd say that one of the things I always want to tell people is pay attention to the material you consume. I have met some people that have done a significant amount of time and have come out of that either feeling like they have healed or feeling like they are lost. And part of that has to do with how they spent their time. Some people will spend an entire sentence reading murder mysteries and true crime novels and stuff like that. Other people are going to look at, how do I find a deeper sense of self? How do I find the person that I was always meant to be? How do I hold on to the parts inside myself that are real and true and deep and good that I had before any of the trauma started? And using the time that way, I've seen allow people to launch into their post-release life feeling real. I always talk about this guy on TikTok, Jesse Crisson. He did 19 years in Virginia State Prison, and he started posting on TikTok right after he got released. For anybody that hasn't checked him out, you should, because he talks about accountability and how he spent his sentence in the most refreshing way, and just brings a lot of really great insights to the release process and the stresses of immediate post-release life. For people that are freshly released, it's hard to trust. It's really something that I want everybody to be patient with themselves, that you want to just feel normal right away. And you can't sometimes. I've got a client, he did 30 years, and he was really frustrated with himself that he didn't feel normal right away. And I said, you've been out for a year. You've been out for 1/30th of the amount of time that you were in, and you've been out for 1/16th of the amount of time that you spent in solitary confinement. Please be patient with yourself. Please speak to the people around you about what you're going through so that they can take the time and care to meet you where you are, because you're trying so hard to meet them where they are, and we can't do it alone. We have to both reach out from both sides. The community role in successful reentry cannot be overstated. We have a strange incarceration culture in America. There are other places where when a person, a member of the community, has caused harm, they surround that community member with love and support, and they try to remind that person of all the good within them and try to help them get that good back. We don't exactly have that here right now, but we can. There's nothing holding us back. Just because we don't have a restorative justice-based system doesn't mean that communities can't choose to do it that way anyway. And so what we can each do is we can stop judging people on an individual basis. Each one of us can stop judging people for their worst day. Each business owner can stop including background check questions on the initial paperwork. Each landlord can stop including the background check as the first step in an application process. We can reach out to local nonprofits and say, hey, how can I get involved? How can I support one returning citizen? And we can turn a punitive justice system into a healthy restorative justice system. Whether or not the legislation ever becomes that way, we can do it by choice. If we come together, if we end the NIMBYism, if we realize that these people are our neighbors and not just some statistic.
The number one thing is, I guess, try not to be, judgmental or keep bringing up, the past, because the past is the past, and just, try to help that individual to see, you made a mistake, but, you have another chance. There's still hope, and, just, like I say, show a lot of love.
What's the hope that you hold on to?
My kids is my hope. Yeah, they're my hope. Everything I do it for them, and I think about them, always trying to better myself for them. Just, your dad may have made some mistakes in life, but this is who I am now. And I want you guys to be better than I was.
First of all, to the community, stop judging people. Everybody makes mistakes. Nobody is perfect. And if you feel like, if you have a thought in your mind that you would give yourself a second chance, then give the next man a second chance. If you're good enough to be excused for a mistake, then allow that next person to be excused for a mistake. And for the youth, all I can say is, don't look and believe everything you see on these videos and in these on TV, in these movies. I'm just gonna say, have faith in your higher power, because everybody doesn't believe in the same, but have faith in your higher power and just do what's best for you. And think before you react. All your actions you have to be accountable for, and you gotta use your mind. You gotta think for yourself. Because some people don't think at all, and they just react to things, and it's not always a good reaction. You know what I mean? From what the situation is. And for any kids out there, the best thing for you to do, listen to your parents, stay in school, and get a higher education. I don't care if it's through the military, going to college, a trade school. get a higher education, because just going to high school and graduating doesn't get it. It just doesn't. And always be a...
He did. Be open-minded and stop doing it your own way. Because that was a key for me. I always had a plan. but it was my plan. And my plans just kept not working out. And you would think that I would have realized that before 4 decades, before I fought that thing for 40 years, in and out of prison, constantly in trouble, always under some kind of jurisdictions of the courts. Through another ministry that Jack Richards started, I do help people. And some of them are success stories and others aren't, because they're just not ready yet. They're not ready to be open-minded. They want to continue to, like I was, to do it their way. They don't, and I can usually spot that when they have reservations about, well, I don't really want to do this, and I can't do it this way. When you hear all these buts and ifs and ands, usually it doesn't work out well. And it's never too late. And if you're struggling, start being open-minded and give the struggle to somebody else. And for me, it was Jesus Christ. I wish I'd come to the Lord earlier in life. I didn't. I didn't know that much about him. Actually going to jail and the people I met is what taught me. Jack Richards, Jacob Chaplain, the man that taught me a theology class. I studied the Bible a lot. And I'm grateful for everything the Lord's done for me, and I believe that I'm a miracle, and that without Jesus Christ, I'd still be out there drinking and drugging if I wasn't dead or back in prison.
The advice that I would give anyone that's been recently released is to not allow your past to determine your future. Don't be a repeat offender, not for anybody else, but for yourself, because if you know how it is incarcerated, don't go back there. That's the number one piece of advice I have for everyone, as well as for the youth. My advice to the youth, and I'm saying this lightly, females, please, please, please do not allow a man to make your life so different than you had dreamed or aspired for love. So that is the piece of advice that I have for youth females. For youth males, I would say try to gain a good network, a good foundation, and for both sides, I would say love yourself. Love yourself more than anyone else can love you.
As our journey through the lives of these remarkable individuals come to a close, we are left with a profound sense of resilience of the human spirit. Each story, a unique testament to the challenges and triumphs faced upon re-entering society, sheds light on the broader narrative of redemption and the quest for a second chance. FAILSAFE-ERA stands as a beacon of hope in this journey, offering guidance, support, and resources necessary to navigate the complexities of life post-incarceration. Their dedication not only transforms lives, but also challenges societal perceptions, advocating for a future where everyone has the opportunity to rewrite their story. As we reflect on the narrative shared, let us remember the importance of empathy, understanding, and support in fostering an environment where second chances are not just a possibility, but a cornerstone of our collective humanity. The paths of those we've met are still unfolding, each day offering a new page to be written. Their courage to share their experiences reminds us of the power of voice and the impact of listening. In their stories, we find not only the struggles of the past, but also the hope for the future. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Together with organizations like FAILSAFE-ERA leading the way, we can contribute to a world that embraces change, encourages growth, and celebrates the dignity of every individual's journey.